Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Sort of nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, you know, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much. Everybody does it. They put a woman in jail, Colorado, put a woman in jail, a wonderful woman, 72 years old, had cancer, because she was a voting inspector. She was in charge of a voting area, and she saw boxes of votes come in. So she went over to check it, and they put her in jail for voter manipulation, and she's still in jail. And they better let her out fast. And they're suffering a big price, Colorado. They have this woman in jail who's 71 years old and probably has cancer. She's sick. And they put her in because she challenged somebody that was dumping ballots into a box, okay? And they didn't put them in jail. This was during Biden's term. The worst president in history. And we had some bad ones. I mean, look, Barack Hussein Obama, I call him the Great Divider. Right. People couldn't stand him. You mentioned his name, they go crazy. They start booing the hell out of him. We had some really bad ones. I mean, Jimmy Carter was.
That was President Trump speaking about Tina Peters and what's happening in Colorado. So we're gonna talk about some things that are happening in Fulton County. So let's just give you a recap, if I can. If you're new to it, go ahead and hit the share button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more, thank you for joining us there. And something is going to happen this week. You're going to see an explosion as we start to get to the bottom of not the 2020 election. And I always hate it when we talk about the 2020 election because it's systemic. They didn't just use a machine one time in 2020, oh, we got it done, it was just on President Trump. They're continuing to use it now. They're continuing to use it in places like Texas. And the CIA is heavily involved in subverting the voice of the American people. But it's not just Colorado, it's not just California, it's not just, they're doing it state by state. If you would look at how you subvert a country, and I was doing this thing where I walked back and looked at how Russia, you know, when we had the Cold War stopped, and Russia split up into a bunch of different, USSR split up into a bunch of different countries. And they had their own sovereignty, and they were basically the nation states of that region. In large part, maybe it was done for good. I'd like to believe it was. But the same type of mentality, the same playbook was used. We've used the same playbook every time, almost like we're just cattle. And the intelligence community has done the same thing over and over again. First you slander, first you bully, you destroy, you ridicule, you make sure that you have density in the apparatuses that you need density in order to continue it. And so they did it state by state. And they captured a very important part of that state apparatus when they went after California. But if you look back at when California turned radically left, and you look at what happened in Oregon, you look at what happened in Washington, then you look at places like New York City, Chicago, places where the people are just not that way. If you were to have a conversation with normal people off the street, if you were to take and disconnect the media propaganda and the rhetoric that they develop, because most people don't pay attention, right? They just get the sound bites. Most people get the TikTok video that's 30 seconds or 1 minute long, and that's what they get their opinion on. They can like or dislike someone based on a 60-second clip. Most people don't have time to slow down, and a part of not having time is the fact that they work, countless number of hours, and 50 cents on every dollar, 56 cents on every dollar goes to a government apparatus, and you have the husband and the wife that have to work, and they never seem to be able to connect. And if you look at, and I talked about this on a video that I put up just now on X and Facebook, you have child care that costs you $1,500, $2,000 a month. You have 50 cents on the dollar that goes to the government. You have 50 cents left. So when you're done, if you're lucky, you got 100% with two people out there working. All of this money goes to the government. They misuse it and give it away to people that don't deserve it. And then you have to pay $1,500, $2,000 in child care. And then, all right, let's talk about health care. Well, the big pharma companies are making billions of dollars, and we've created these opportunities where they can, at ridiculous rates, charge everything, and then we try to legislate them to charge less. Well, if you have to legislate them to charge less, that means they had the opportunity or the ability to charge less to begin with. But nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud about just how rotted the apparatus is in our country. It takes President Trump getting on a show saying, look, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. We're gonna take all these boxes. We're gonna file all these injunctions and get activist judges inside of a very captured environment of the judiciary to give us some sort of playback. That we're going to be able to prevent them from getting to the truth. Now, all along for the last 5 years, we've been talking about the truth. We have two guests today, and I want to make sure I give them both adequate time. So I'm going to spend a little time on a couple things. One, I'm running for governor of Colorado. I am doing that. And despite the Republican cabal in Colorado that's kept me off debate stages, that has had the GOPs exclude me from the list of people that are running for office, said I'm not a serious candidate. I'm the only candidate that's run hundreds of millions of dollars in business, started a company in Colorado, started 2 companies in Colorado, 3 companies, 5 companies, 10 companies. I'm the only one that has failed miserably and talked about failing miserably and going bankrupt some 20 years ago. I'm the only one that's talked about what I've given back and how I've given back. But they're afraid of me because I talk about how do we put the people in our communities first? How do we go and listen to the people? I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, you're Barney with web feet and pink polka dots. I don't care. What does the community need? And so this guy, Victor Marx, he has lied about me over and over and over again. And you could tell me, oh, Victor Marx is a man of God. Men of God do not act and do the things that this guy has done. So I'm going to put this out there. There's a video. It's a video from quite a long time ago. And I sent it to a friend of mine who is a clinical psychologist. He worked on the criminal behavioral science for. He didn't work for the FBI. I don't actually know what governmental organization he worked for. But I sent it to him and I was like, tell me what you see. So I want you to pay attention to this video, and then I'll ask you what you see. Let's play it.
And my stepfather was a very good communicator. When the guy relaxed, he hit him, he cracked him, and knocked him unconscious. He pulls out a pistol, his pistol. He said, come here, boy. And he put the gun on my head and he said, you're gonna shoot this man. And he raised my hand. I have the pistol to the back of his head, and I remember trying to pull the trigger, and I couldn't. I was 7, and then I feel his hand come over and grab my wrist, and he presses until the revolver goes off. And when it fired, it hit the guy in the back of his head, and it killed him. I had just graduated high school, hallelujah, and but I was spiraling, using drugs, fighting, and stealing. And every opportunity that I could take advantage, I would. But I got caught, and I was looking at, I was looking at being sentenced because of my, stealing and getting in trouble. So my best option at that point was to join the United States Marine Corps. And I did, and that's what really kept me from going to jail. When they taught me how to put 10 rounds on the able target of a man from 546 yards without a scope, wow, that gave me a skill set that, felt good. You know, I'm training martial arts, karate, jiu-jitsu, kempo, judo, anything I could, boxing, because I said if I can't beat a man this way, I'll beat him this way. I did one term of enlistment, and I had actually gotten in trouble while I was in, and I had developed an elaborate lie. It was a pretty good lie. I told him, I said I was going to lie. You know, I said, but here's the truth. I did this, and I deserve my punishment. My nickname, my handle in the Marine Corps was Thumper.
Because you were a hothead.
I was a hothead. I tell people it's because I like the little Bambi bunny, you know, in the movie, the little bunny Thumper, but it's because I like to thump people. For me, I'd rather have a false hope than not have the right answer. It was just great. It was a great time. But I was having emotional problems hidden. And I would never tell anybody. Nobody knew that I was at Queens in an observation room because I had horrible thoughts about hurting myself or other people, you know. But I chose in that moment to go, I'm so unstable at this moment.
He is unstable. There's a lot of truth to that. So I went ahead and read his book, The Dangerous Gentleman. And there's something in his book that describes himself very well. And it's scary how he describes himself, because it's actually probably the only honest thing he said in this book. But he shot a guy at 7 years old. He was asked later in a different interview, you know, did you ever go back and try to find that man? Because you said you buried him in the backyard. You should be able to retrace those steps. I know where I was at 7 as you're trying to remember this stuff. And he's like, no, I talked to the police. Well, the police will be very interested in that deal. And I was like, yeah, they didn't have any interest in it, which means it didn't happen. So you decide. I didn't care about Victor Marx running for any office. I could care less what he does. You know, the fact that he had to run out and get a bunch of people to endorse him while running around the state of Colorado saying, do not let Joe Oltmann speak, speaks volumes on who he is, not who I am. See, I've been working for the last 5 years in Colorado and around the country on election fraud. I've given up tens of millions of dollars, could have sold my company, could have never gotten involved in any of this, right? So the reality of it is I care deeply about the people, and we've got to start having those conversations about who we want in those seats of government, who frankly have never handed the keys back to the people, except for President Trump. I believe he has. Here's a post that I put up about Tina Peters still being in prison. Let's go ahead and put that up. Tina Peters is still in prison. Let that sink in. We have all the evidence. We have the whistleblowers. We know how they stole the elections, and we know the governors, secretary of states on both sides of the aisle are complicit. And no arrest except for people like Tina Peters. This week will be Retribution Week. Let's make it all about accountability and free Tina Peters. So I'm hell-bent on that. And then we had this post by Matt Cain. I want to put this up, please. Brian Cates, sorry. I'm actually not a fan of Brian Cates. And I don't hold back. It's not that I dislike him, I just don't like him. A couple weeks ago, I was called. They said they put this out there that we're going to have massive arrests that happen. Things are going to start moving. They did. They did move. It was sitting right here in the open, how they Dementia Joe to 81 million votes in 2020, fake illegal voter applications online, where the people were created the fake illegal voters, then requested a mail-in ballot for the fake illegal voter, and then they filled it out and mailed it back in. That's how they got them to 81 million votes. All right, take this shit down, right? So put up my response, if you would. Can we put up my response? No. So the one before it, the one that's on Brian's post. Do we have that? Okay. Put up that post anyway. Put this post up. So what I basically said to Brian is, you're full of shit. You're full of crap. There was nobody sitting behind a computer that was over there doing this. That's how you know people are ops. That's how, when they don't understand machines, when they put these flamboyant things out there and talk about the fact that they're the expert, when frankly, the guy used to work at like Home Depot as a check-in guy. No, I'm out. I'm out. There was nobody behind there filling out fake ballots and having mail-in ballots sent to them. They didn't need it. So then I put this up, put it up real quick, and then we'll go to our. It gets worse. Notice how she used phantom ballots. The system is designed to create phantom ballots, use a variety of components, such as the ADA mechanism that allows them to create a ballot out of thin air and mark it as if it is filled out by the human hand. This is the diagram I built explaining the fraud in December of 2020, after I got sued by Eric Coomer and after many media outlets attacked me viciously. It still holds true today and explains the video perfectly. Keep in mind, we had this information nearly 5.5 years ago. And there's the model that I put up. Day one, someone I took and met with counsel for Pompeo because Pompeo went out the back door. What are we hearing about Pompeo now? I've been saying this for 5 years, that the guy is dirty. I'm just telling you that the counsel for Pompeo literally sat in that room for me and was sweating in a very well air-conditioned room. And he looked at me and he said, why would people do that? Why would anybody do that? He knew when he saw this that I knew that he knew, and they spent 5 years trying to destroy me, using this Republican cabal, not the radical left, in order to do it. And then there's this. Lara Logan had this to say. There's an aggressive plan underway to take the House and the Senate, impeach President Trump, and then savagely consolidate a permanent grip on power. We're in a war. If you fail to see that, you'll be one of those crying out in shock as they usher you into the gas chambers and killing fields. What Lara Logan is saying here is 1,000% true. 1,000% true. And the reality of us sitting here today is that everything we're dealing with, it's like a vicious circle. What was A1, by the way? What was A1? Oh, got it. All right, so we have a guest. Let's take me up to the guest part. I want to talk about the guest. So they had we're going to talk more about Victor Marx, but I think I've done enough for him today. I talked a little bit about him on my post earlier. You can catch it on Facebook or X or any of those. It's about 32 minutes long. It's worth the listen. Our first guest is Dan Collins. Sorry, he's a China expert and engineer at Chaos Inc. podcast. He does a podcast as well, which is pretty awesome. He's going to tell us a little bit about China. I'd love to hear about China, but more importantly, he focuses in on some of the economics that we're facing today. We've seen silver go up. We've seen gold come up. We've seen it crash almost as quickly. It looked like a short squeeze to me, but we're going to find out from him what that is. He also is the host of a YouTube channel, Chaos Inc. He delivers hard-hitting analysis on global events, geopolitical, macroeconomics, and the economy as it relates to the CCP and their policies. He's an active commenter on X with sharp, contrarian take on currency debates. And again, has a lot of knowledge as it relates to China and how it interconnects to what we do here. So without any further ado, welcome Dan to the show.
Hey Joe, thanks. Great to be here.
Good to see you. How you been?
Good. A little cold down here in South Florida at 30 degrees. So
is it 30 degrees down there?
Feels like 30 degrees. Yeah, we've had a cold few days.
You know, I got to tell you, I went to Texas and it was 23 degrees there for 5 days. I thought this cold snap was supposed to finish, like be done. This is nuts.
It's all this global warming.
Yeah, it's warming us up. It's keeping us warm in the summertime, cold in the wintertime.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you make of this gold and silver debacle we got going on, and basically the run on owning silver, like having it, possession of it, that we saw run up in China and how it's affected the markets?
Yeah, silver in China is still trading around $130 for physical. The gap between China physical silver and international silver prices are extreme divergence at this point. China has banned the export of silver, so they're around 70% of global refining of silver. Everything outside of that is really, melting down old silver jewelry and thing. But silver has become is no longer just a precious metal, it's a massive industrial metal. So solar panels use, I think 40% of silver usage now. So it's in EVs, it's in electronics. So that's been the phase change. And that's why China has banned the export of it, is because everyone's scrambling for silver. It's been in a deficit now in terms of usage versus mining. It's been in deficit now for 3 years, and there's no path forward to mining catching up to usage. So that's what's driven the silver price. And I think you get a lot of the financial people wake up and pile in, so you'll see a massive spike up. you'll see massive sell downs. But I think long term, at this point, I predicted last year silver going over 100 when it was 30 some. I think long term will be 250 at some point, no problem. And then
I had Vince on when it was like $34 or $35, and I go, Vince, it's going to 100 in the next 6 months or 6. He's like, no, it's not. And I was like, bro, I'll have you back on, and it went to 100, and I was like, Vince, my man. He's like, Joe, that's why I'm here. You're right.
So I lived for 20 years outside of literally a couple blocks away from the Shanghai Metals Exchange. And so I always follow the China side because they're the mass that's got the massive money. They like the physical stuff. They buy massive amounts of it physical and just hoard it. They're still over $130. As I mentioned, they ban the exports. So, we're going to get some massive volatility in the prices. But silver is really like a rare earth, which is China's also bottlenecked the world on. So I think that's what's going to drive the price. Simple supply and demand.
Yeah, so explain to me this. If like I'm an arbitrage guy, I think that I don't know what silver's at, like $80 or $82 today. It was a 76 last night. If you're a betting guy, why wouldn't you just buy it at 76 and walk over to China and sell it for 130?
Yeah, well, actually, I've had some people asking me that exact question with emails. How do I do this? How do I arbitrage this? But there's a lot of issues with bringing in silver and now even sending it out. So it's hard to get, you have to physically bring it over, and there are going to be some rules, and, you get a lot of issues going through customs with a lot of silver. But yeah, as long as the physical gap exists in this, I think people will try to arbitrage it for sure.
Okay, so let's. I'm doing it right now. By the way, I'm just telling you right now. I own a lot of silver. Why wouldn't I buy it for 76 here or 80 here, and go sell my silver over there? By the way, there's nothing illegal about loading up suitcases and taking them over to China, right?
Right.
You're allowed to do that.
You are, yeah, yep.
So you just have to declare it in and declare it out, which is fine.
And that's what will be happening. A lot of people are going to be bringing in. You could even get your silver to Hong Kong, and you'll get people backpacking it into the mainland. As long as that gap is there, I think it'll continue to close. The big spike we could see on silver internationally is that, the COMEX, like so many things in our society now, is built on fraud. And so 200 for every real ounce of physical silver, you get around 200 ounces that are traded in the on the COMEX. So it's just a paper mirage. So eventually, people are thinking that this might be the time where, when people start asking for physical delivery, many of us have been saying this for 10, 20 years, they start asking for physical delivery, they don't have it, and the price goes parabolic. So that's kind of what I think we saw with the $30 to 120 move. Came back down, seemed to be like in a very coordinated fashion, and now it's already starting to go back up today. So, yeah, it's buckle up. It's going to be a ride on silver for sure.
Okay, so what was I right about a short squeeze, or am I just is just my mind is not people cashing out? And
I think it could be both. It could be I think that move was so volatile, and it hit gold and silver at the same time. It seemed to be a central bank coordination to me.
My
talking
friend,
7 trillion. I think on the low estimate was 7 trillion up to 15 trillion move in a day.
In a day.
We've never seen anything like that. That's incredible.
My friend Derek kept looking out the window when it was flying up, and he's like, "I just kept looking out for bombs." Are we at war? Because it feels like we're at war. Like, what's going on here? Yeah, but we are at war in a way, right? So
for decades, we've been used to very minute, like gold. It would never go more than 1% to 2% at max in a day, and now it's acting like a cryptocurrency. It's crazy.
Well, you saw what happened to cryptocurrency too. We had Solana drop nearly 30%. We saw that happen. We saw same thing happen with Bitcoin, and you had this kind of short. But you had major players in the market that divested from Bitcoin, big amounts, like billions of dollars, literally overnight. Which is
a lot of coordinated selling. Yeah.
which is a sign for the people that always get victimized in this environment. Oh, it's going to go up, it's going to go up, it's going to go up. Well, we already know that Bitcoin has a shelf life, that cryptocurrencies have a shelf life until they can deregulate it or start to regulate it into the economies, right? Until that happens, do you agree? You're gonna see this volatility, and you're not going to have any sort of. I think the closest thing we have to it is probably Ethereum, and that's because it has a useful case, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I've been in Bitcoin since 2016, 2017. I know a lot of the original guys that did the first white paper. I had a Bitcoin mine myself. I was running about 200 machines at one time. And it's Bitcoin is the hardest asset ever created. It's harder than gold and silver. There's not enough of it to go around. It's become institutionalized. So that goes on the upside. It can also go on the downside. But we're used to these big swings. I would say for retail, don't sell your Bitcoin because the world's not used to hard assets. When something is in fixed supply, the demand always goes up. So I don't recommend people have massive amounts of their net worth in crypto. But if you have 10% or 20%, you're fine and just let it go. That scarcity of Bitcoin, meaning they're never making any more than the 17 million or so, that's fixed. It can't go up. So that would just become more and more scarce,
Okay, so all of us. Let me. Can I shift gears with you for a little bit? We talk about economies and we talk about this deficit that we have in the United States. Now, we've had analysts that have told us that about half of that is debt that's held by China or foreign investments. The more that I've dug into it, the less likely that is that's true. Yeah, they buy bonds, they buy our debt. That's true.
Right.
But the percentage of which they buy the debt, the way I'm looking at it, maybe I'm on crack. I don't think I am, but it's less than 8%. And most of the money we have in our deficit is actually it's fake, and it's been created by the Fed as a way to actually justify not buying back bonds and allowing interest rates to creep up so that banking institutions, financial institutions can make more money. Am I off when I'm saying that?
No, that's correct. Chinese foreign holdings of our treasury bills are down to around $680 billion. That's down from about 1.1 trillion for the last 10 years. They stopped buying U.S. treasuries a decade ago. Most of the foreign debt we owe is to our own banks or to the Fed. The Fed has been monetizing our debt. They've been printing money. That's why our inflation has gone way out of whack. Post-COVID, our government budget was around $4 trillion. And then when COVID came, it went to $7 trillion. And they never brought that back down. It's still $7 trillion. So we flooded the system with all this printed money. And that's caused the massive inflation combined with our deindustrialization that's been taking place for 20 some years. That's got us in the situation we are now when the economy is pretty scary.
Okay, so let's, I need to back up on this because I think it's really important. The Fed is almost unnecessary. I'm sorry, I don't see it as a necessary evil.
Right.
It actually just favors the haves, this small group of people.
Sure.
And it allows for certain groups of people to get access to zero interest, low interest loans, but everyone else has to pay these big bigs, right?
Correct.
And I'm not sure everyone understands that the average person goes in, but there's like a secret handshake you can get to get a 1% or 2% loan or 0% loan on the side. And that does exist, correct? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And it's kind of like I want to bash my head against the wall because I've been telling people for 30 years, the Federal Reserve is not part of the government. It's privately owned by the Fed-owned banks. And they pay themselves dividends by giving themselves free money. Yeah. Anytime we run into a crisis, they print themselves more money. They take they take profits for years on fake housing investments. It all collapses. We bail them out 100%. They even got their bonuses that year, 2008, the great financial crisis. This is a scam on the people. United States is one of the only countries that doesn't have a nationalized central bank. And every time you talk about it, they go, oh, well, you got to have independence. Like, what independence? We are monetizing our debt. So it would be very easy to just nationalize the Fed instead of paying these clowns 3%, 4%, 5% interest every year for doing nothing. So,
well, and that would more closely align with what you see in foreign environments for how they use their banks, right? So, and for those that don't know, trillions of dollars then gets to be leaked out. And the Fed is also a mechanism by which intelligence communities can fund themselves, and different special interest groups can create this instability we have going on in our economies right now. Because they know how to turn off what spigot they turn off in order to create the instability, which leads to devaluation, which is kind of a reset. It's not a reset for them. It's a reset for us. It takes more meat off the bone from the American people, not from them.
No, they get the money first too. That's also very important. They get the money before the inflation is created. They get to spend it. You know, they've got people out here working for $15 an hour, and they print themselves trillions of dollars. It's an absurdity. It all ends up in this what we call the K-shaped economy, where if you're an asset holder, everything has gone up, but for the average people, you're seeing a declining standard of living because they're not holding the assets. So it's created the SAP bubbles, speculative asset pricing bubbles in housing, in stocks, in everything else. Is the root cause of this is all money printing.
Yeah. Let me. I have so many questions. Jiminy Christmas, I have so many questions, and I only have you for another 15 minutes. So I want to dive into all of your expertise. I want to get your knowledge. I want to suck it from you. Now, before you came on, I got to go through all of your X, so I saw some of the stuff that you printed or you wrote before, and so I think I have a pretty good idea how your mind works. And I'll apologize up front. I'm a walking encyclopedia of worthless information because I take information from you and from Vince and other people, principal investment guys and things like that. But as it relates to China, you've been inside of their manufacturing ecosystem.
Yep.
So when we look at China versus the United States, and we can argue being at war with them, whether it's this simmering war or it's just a competition that's gotten a little bit out of control. I don't know which one to call it. Mm-hmm. But how vulnerable is China right now when we start talking about tariffs and supply chains, reshoring? When we start talking about volatility, and we just saw the difference between the silver. How is this affecting them? They in essence can rewrite the rules every day. So is what we're doing adversely affecting them? Do they see it as it's connected to other economies, or are they just basically sitting back, letting us basically turn dials and say that's a neat party trick?
So China's strategy has basically been sit back and do nothing and win and watch the U.S. destroy itself.
Yes,
which is kind of what's been happening. U.S. we're highly vulnerable to China. The tariffs don't affect them because we are only 15% of their global exports. So if they shut that down, sure, it would not be great for they have a lot of businesses that would struggle. But if they stop sending trade containers here, our lights would go out. Every production facility in the country would shut down in 30 to 45 days. There would be nothing at Amazon, nothing at the AutoZones, O'Reilly's, nothing. This is all coming from China. As you mentioned, I have the factory experience. I ran a factory there for more than a decade. I had 2,000 employees. So I know what gets built there. I know what doesn't get built there. We are highly vulnerable. And I have called for tariffs on China and everyone else that's gamed the system of free trade, which doesn't actually exist. They've gamed all of these countries have gamed the system for multiple decades, and it's deindustrialized the U.S. And these morons in D.C. that have never set foot in a factory before don't understand it.
They're opening up the first smelting facility in the United States in 4 decades.
Correct.
Right?
I read that. That's great information. That's great news. We haven't set up a new oil refinery since 1979. China's built 250 in that time frame. So they are, in terms of just manufacturing and manufacturing, we can't compete with China at this point. So what I tell people is, they do 3 times as many cars. It's going to be soon 3 times as much power generation. They do all our consumer goods. I mean, all our chemicals. The list is endless. Okay, it's much worse than people realize. So my thought is that, we need a strategy where we bide our time to reindustrialize the country before we pick a fight with China.
But do we even I mean, Dan, do we even have to pick a fight with them? I mean, really?
We don't.
I
No,
mean,
they don't.
Can't
They're
we?
not aggressive. Yeah, China hasn't had a war since 1976. They're not really this expansionist power. They're kind of into their own thing. They have they're not thinking of us every day. They have their own life, right? It's like,
Look, all the technology advancements we have in the United States, all the tech companies that exist, from X all the way down, the system architecture, all based out of China. It's all built in China, 100% of it. And we start talking about things like, what is it called? Deep, the AI platform.
DeepSeek and these guys,
DeepSeek, yeah. One of my guys that was one of our para AI guys went to go work for him, took all of our code. So it was good validation, but it sucked. It hurt, right? I'll never do that again. I just decided that when you're chasing dollars, and I bet you he sold us out for like next to nothing. Anyway, you've probably seen that before.
Oh yeah. That's a cultural thing. Got to understand who you're dealing with. And in China, if you find a way to embezzle money from the company, over here we're shocked. That guy is morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
He's a guy. In China, they'll say, "Oh, that guy's clever.
Yeah,
he figured he hacked the system."
Yeah.
So it's just a cultural thing. You got to understand like who you're dealing with.
Yeah. So that brings me to the foundational, the backbone behind our country. Our computers are built there. Our semiconductors, chipsets are built there, built in Taiwan, built in Hong Kong, built in mainland China. Even the ones that say that they came from Taiwan or Indonesia typically actually flow through from China, right?
Yeah.
They come with billion ladens that come straight from China, not from those areas. And I've got myself caught in the middle of that where I'm like, I won't buy anything from China, but I buy something from Indonesia. Sure enough, it comes over made in China, right? So, so as we start examining this, like what if they turned off the faucet? I think it would hurt them, but I think they built up enough of a stock on our backs that they could withstand it longer than we could.
Of course, I've said for multiple decades, if this whole thing comes down, the guy left with the factories is going to win.
Yes.
They've got the factories, they've got the production know-how, they've got the capability. We just have a Ponzi scheme. We have government spending and fraud. Not a war you want to fight with those tools.
Yeah. So tell me this. Tell me this. If and you said the people in Washington, and the greatest part about having a conversation with you is I feel like I get you. And you talk in terms that people can understand. What's next? If we look at the economic battle that's happening right now, and we have such a disconnect in Washington, which is obvious, then Dan, what is next for us if we continue to let village idiots and the Fed dictate economic policy and or get President Trump to believe that, I believe tariffs are good, by the way. I want to hear your thoughts on that. But if we get these guys, and I believe, if we get these guys in Washington that don't know what they're doing, they're just pushing buttons and pulling levers, what does that, how does that, is that going to bode well for us?
Well, I think the Trump administration has correctly identified the problem. So then you get to going from problems to solutions. I think they have a lot of solutions. I think after a year of the tariff weeping and gnashing of the teeth, I think they finally are in a good position where we want it to be. You want to tariff China around 50%. You don't, but 150%. You start shutting down businesses. So you have to do these things gradually as you reindustrialize. They rightly point out that everybody's gaming the free trade system, which has been going on for decades, multiple decades. I'm from Detroit, so I grew up in post-industrial Michigan and Detroit. I saw it all happen. That's why I left for China after I graduated school. So we have to get to the solutions, but can the solutions come quick enough? You have to reindustrialize. We see some green shoots. We see new car automotive assembly plants being listed. We see chip manufacturing. We see pharma manufacturing. Can we wake up the whole population to, because Trump is for tariffs, they're naturally against tariffs. The huge group of people like that. So we have to show the job gains of real jobs, real capabilities. You know, cousin Joe just got hired at Chrysler. That kind of thing has to be happening before the midterms come in. And I just don't know if we're going to get there on time.
Well, I have confidence we will, because President Trump is like Houdini. the guy's like a cat that has 9 lives that hasn't even used up one yet, right?
Yep. So we are printing good GDP prints. How real that is, I don't know. But like I said, there's a lot of green shoots. We just need we need to see the jobs are still, you know, when Biden, even before Biden left office, we've been in a recession. I call it like a real economy recession. You look at freight, right? Freight was down 20% this year. Housing market's been frozen for years. You know, it went down almost 10% here in Florida last year. It's going to get a bigger decrease this year. So housing is 20% of your GDP, right? So freight's dead, housing's frozen. Where is the GDP coming from? It's mainly, you know, people building out data centers, but it's mainly, there's a lot of financial flows that these numbers are capturing. We need to get, as your point, that smelter that came online, we need to see that to where it doesn't even make news, where new steel plants are opening, new car plants are opening, et cetera, day after day. And eventually, you know, we add another 10 or 20 million high-skilled jobs in the country.
Well,
and
Dan,
I think realize what needs to happen.
Dan, that can't, I mean, I'm sorry, but that can't happen because most of your supply for steel comes from foreign sources. They're already, you know, they're pre-bought before China comes in and just pre-buys them, you know, a decade in advance for you know. So this is a bigger problem, because even if we do get those plants online, we still have to deal with the consequences of that what happened to silver. Same thing's going to happen with steel. Same thing's going to happen with copper. Right. We see it happening with copper, 40% up in just the last 2 weeks. So how do we get past?
I get you. There's numerous problems in reindustrialization. There's no doubt about it. Our average tool and die maker is 60 years old, right? We have whole generations we didn't train. So there's a lot of issues, but keep in mind, I lived through the industrialization of China. They had a bigger problem than we did. They didn't know how to make anything. They had to start from zero.
Well, they still have some factories that you walk into and be like, this is the factory, and an iPhone comes out the other end, huh?
Yeah, they're all over the map. But keep in mind, too, people don't realize China developed industrialized behind 80% duties. They tariffed everything. As a young engineer, I imported with my first year 1999, $300 million UAW-made auto parts into China. So I felt great about that. I'm employing Americans from my home state, and, you know, and then literally the government will come around and say, if you don't build this here, we're going to tariff it at 240%, not just the 80%. It doesn't matter if that's against WTO or not, but that's how it's done. And it's not just China, it's Korea, it's Germany, it's everywhere else. So yeah, there's innumerable problems, but as I tell people, 330 million people in the United States with our land and our natural resources, there's no excuse why we're not building things. That something's gone wrong in the system, and we need to fix it.
Well, I think that it's been profit first and not growth first, right? So we look at long-term sustainability. Yep. And we're more concerned about carbon credits and at the
there's this crazy Chicago stuff like that, which is easy to get rid of. But to your point, our whole financial system is built on paper speculation. It's not built on let me invest in these new plants, right? Because you got to really spend money to get these things up, and they hate that. They don't want to spend money. They just want to record the paper profits. So how do you redo the whole financial system as well? That is going to put money behind these things.
Well, and there's so there's so much stuff that I want to ask you, and I'm running out of time. All right, let me ask you this: what are we not seeing? What is the under the radar risk or opportunity based on this standoff that we see going on right now that we might be missing? That's causing some of these price fluctuations to occur.
I think you had the U.S. dollar go down dramatically last year, about 10%. That's a big reverse change from the last, say, decade. You've got the European, they hold a lot of our debt. Are they going to buy new treasuries? You got all the geopolitical issues going around. You've got Iran now, you had Venezuela. That's just in the first few months of the year. Let's see, who knows what's going to happen the rest of the year. The opportunities, though, are really reindustrialization of the United States. That's where I focus my own businesses now, is trying to get factories back to the United States and building. So I think that's going to be a 20 to 30-year story going forward.
Are
Where
you
we have robots coming in,
Yeah.
that's going to get labor problem. We got AI combined with humanoid robots is going to make, it should make almost every type of consumer good, very, very cheap. And it should be able to build mass prosperity for people. And I think that's what you see Elon Musk talk about, is that this is in the future. It's not 5 years, but it's coming.
So he canceled the S and the X production in order to make room for the robots.
Yep. This is going to be a game changer.
But he had a really good sales model there. Are you concerned about, these fluctuations and changes, and, is Tesla going to go the way of the dinosaur and how they sell cars and not sell cars anymore? Or what are we
I don't know. I think there was a good point. Somebody had mentioned that in the future, people forget Tesla even sold cars. And that means if they become that successful, they're already successful in space. And if he does this on robots, you're talking about there's going to be a humanoid robot for, 2 or 3 of them for every person in 10 years. So imagine, if you will, a factory now in the U.S. You've got it fully automated with robots. You have it, the labor cost issues are gone. How many new factories you can build in the United States? The government will force that because you bring back the tax base. So most of our factories left, people don't realize, not just for wage reasons, but they left for tax reasons. They escaped the 38% tax rates, which we had from year 2000 to 2015. And Trump came in, and Trump 1.0 slashed it down to 20%, and it finally kickstarted manufacturing again. So, I think the opportunities in the future are manufacturing, humanoid robots, agentic AI, these kinds of things. So, I'm hopefully optimistic on that in the future going forward.
Well, I am too, and so I'm out of time, but I want people to understand where can they find you, number one, and number two, how do they follow you? Do you have a Substack? How can people stay in tune with the things that you're talking about related to China?
I'm usually on X ranting and raving about something at Dan Collins 2011, probably best place. On YouTube, I have a Chaos Incorporated channel. If you type that in my name, there's a link there. I just post my media appearances and do my own shows from time to time with interesting people.
All right, so I appreciate you coming on. I'll probably have you back on again because I know that there's some things coming down the pike next week with the tariffs in China. They did punt the ball again, which I feel like just drives me nuts. But
you don't want you have to put these tariffs in and just leave them, right? They just keep moving the ball on us, which is a big problem for business forecasting. I live with it every day. So.
All right. Well, I just followed you, and I want other people to be able to follow you and keep up with it. I think this is probably the most important thing, is that we understand economically where we're at as a country. Absolutely. so you can predict what to do next, right? Do you pull? Do you not pull? Do you add money to different markets? Do you invest in commodities? I think it's important for every American to stay up on that. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. God bless you.
Take care.
Yeah, so it was a strange deal. I got online and started looking at all the things that he had posted, and then followed him. But before I did, I just went back through all the information that he shares and what he talks about. And I think that you'll find that he's a wealth of information, just like Vince is, and can keep you abreast of what's happening. I think that we have to focus in on what's happening with manufacturing in this country. And the two times that I've actually had conversations with people related to manufacturing in the last 60 days, they're like, Joe, I want to invest in this. And I go, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Let's do it. So before we go to a commercial break, I remember that I told you this, and we started this a couple years ago. We did these challenge coins. I've given out over 500 of these coins to people when I'm on airplanes. I ran into someone on one of the airplanes that said, hey, Joe, how you doing? Okay, now, truth be told, I can't go to an airport. I haven't been on a plane. I haven't been anywhere where someone hasn't walked up to me and tried to hug me. I have had a few people on every trip that I take, because I just got back from Phoenix. By the way, I shot a 39 on Lookout Mountain in Phoenix on the front, and then proceeded to fall apart on the back for unknown reasons. But anyway, I had a good 9 holes. If you judge me on 9 holes, I could probably compete with anyone. But anyway, we had these coins, and so I've handed these out to quite a few people, and we also have obviously the 5 set of the coins in 2 different types. And if you go to Honorbound USA, we still got these. I just lowered the price on them. I just bought a bunch more. And you say, well, Joe, why did you buy it with a conservative daily and logo on it? And the reason being is because this is where it started. This is where it started. So you can buy these now for what did I put it down at? $1.99 for 1, $4.99 for 2, and I think it's $12.99 plus shipping and handling for the 5 sets. And I've got some new stuff that's coming in that you're going to want to have. But I keep one of these in my pocket at all times. And when somebody walks up to me, depending on what they say, is depending on which one that I give them. So you have pray, stand, speak, act. And so, and then you have a Bible verse that is associated with each one of them. So Galatians 4:16, Judges 7, which is the Gideon 300. And then you have Ephesians 6:10, putting on the full armor of God. And 1 John 3:16. And for those of you that don't remember 1 John 3:16, let me just tell you about it. 1 John 3:16 is the other John 3:16. And it basically says, let me just paraphrase it, that God gave up his son for us. So we should be willing to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters, obviously. And then James 2:26 that goes through that faith without works is dead. So go over there, get it. It's $1.99 at honorboundusa.com and pick those up. And then while you're at it, you're probably going to want this. We've got these Let My People Go DVDs and Blu-rays. I got a bunch left, and we're just kind of blowing them out. But you're going to want it for posterity for sure, because of what's getting ready to occur. So I would recommend that you get that as well. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Kyle Seraphin, my brother from another mother. So we'll be right back.
In every thread, in every stitch, Honorbound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honorbound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honorbound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers. Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. It's hot.
All right, we're back. Sorry, I was eating a piece of celery. Well, I'm not going to waste any time. I don't need to introduce you to him. You already know who he is. He is the Kyle Seraphin. What's up,
I
brother?
don't need that. Hey, what's going on, buddy? What do you're like, you're chomping on your celery.
I was eating celery with peanut butter, which I really like. I like celery with peanut butter.
It's stuck in your teeth.
And then it was a little bit stuck in my teeth. I had to fix that.
It's like what they did to Mr. Ed, the horse. They used to put peanut butter on his lips, and he would go, and then he would pretend to be talking.
Well,
That's how they got Mr. Ed to talk. Yeah. I don't know why I believe that's true. I don't know that it's actually true now that I think about it. I'm pretty sure that's what I was told, and it sounds true.
I mean, it sounds reasonable, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think it's unreasonable.
Yeah. No, not even a little bit unreasonable.
So how you been? You got sick because you got gonosyphilia while you were in SHOT Show?
While I was walking on the streets, actually walking to meet you, it was probably the longest street walk I did the entire time I was in Vegas. I was cruising through, and I'm constantly, and I shouldn't be, but I'm shocked by the depravity of what that city is and what it's become, and like how it used to be kind of fun, and it was a little bit risque, and there was like some shady, seedy parts. And I used to go there when I was young, like when I was in my mid 20s. I'd drive in from Los Angeles. My buddies and I would be hanging out in at Barney's Beanery or something because I was working at a movie studio, and we would just have this like dumb idea on a Friday. We'd have one beer, and then somebody would be like, "What are we doing this weekend?" You're like, "Oh, we could go to Vegas." It's like, that was dumb last time. Let's do it again. It was dumb this time too. Then we'd drive through the desert for 6 hours. We'd get there. We'd be up all night gambling. We'd meet some weird like Australian dudes that are trying to bet their cell phone because it has a bad cell phone plan. Like, you'd have like a weird adventure. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning with no room and no sleep and everybody either drunk or hungover or whatever, I would sober boat or drive myself back home. I'm walking to go see you in Vegas, and I think I actually got sick because I saw these horrific women wearing no clothing, and they were wearing nothing but fishnets and pasties over their nipples, and then they came up and they were trying to touch men, and when they got close to me, they got real close to touching me, and I went, "Sinners," and they jumped back. That? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want any nude women to touch me on the street because that's not the kind of life I'm trying to have. So anyway, but I was in their proximity close enough that I could have caught whatever sort of like airborne STDs they had. And then, I got home and I had like a cough and an upper respiratory infection. I just shook it as of like sometime yesterday.
You're like, I had some upper respiratory STD. Okay, all right. That's why really I said gonosyphilia.
I know. It was a head cold. It was a head cold, but it was from Las Vegas, so it could have really been anything at the head cold level. And I don't really go to doctors anymore, so I'm just guessing that whatever it is, it's gone. My body triumphed. So I got a lift in and a run, and I feel like a champ today.
All right. So, I mean, look, I'm glad you're feeling better. I actually feel better too.
You started the day off. Hold on. Should I read what you sent me this morning?
Yeah.
Hold on. Here we go.
I did. I sent that to you this morning.
Joe Oltmann. Good morning. God is so good. This week, 3 exclamation points. I don't know about the this week part. Can you translate that part for me?
I feel like, man, I don't even know how to explain it to you. I feel like every day I wake up, and you and I have had this conversation, black pill, red pill, white pill. Like, I'm thoroughly confused at times. And then something happens where you get this super calmness come over you. Eric Coomer, I get vindicated in a way that's just, I thought it would bring me peace. It made me more angry. And then lawyers have been reaching out to me all over the place to say we found these 800 people we need to sue. And we'll actually do it on a contingency basis. We want to go after everyone. We want to go after Coomer. We want to go after everyone. People that are in government, that aren't in government, people we just want to sue everyone. And so, but you're angry until you're not. Mm-hmm. And then you're like that saying, like I was ready to fight to the bitter end till death. And right when it got to the point where I'm like, man, I got nothing left to lose. I'm I'm all in. You and I have had these conversations. And then you go, but God. He just steps in and he's like, no, let me show you something. Right? And then I got a call that said this week is retribution week. And I was like, okay, I'm all about it. Let me just sit back here like this.
Who's doing the retribution though?
You know, I think it's going to be a culmination of a bunch of things. I think there's going to be mass arrests. I think they're going to have to bypass the court system.
It's not the first time you've told me this, so I'm ready whenever, but
well, I mean, look, they went down to Fulton County and snatched up 700 boxes, but they already knew. So the 700 boxes don't really mean anything because they already had documentation before they took the 700 boxes of the stuff they changed in the 700 boxes. So there's...
Yeah, you and I have had some offline conversations about this, but the kind of off-record conversations I've had with some other folks have indicated there was never any question about whether or not there was an election problem and whether or not there was fraud. The only issue has always come down to whether or not anybody's going to ever do anything about it, and it benefits both parties. I don't think it benefits the candidates, and it doesn't benefit the members of those parties, but the actual party structure, they like...
it's designed this way.
Yeah, look, the House has to lose a certain amount, it has to win a certain amount. Like, you know, if you have predictable behaviors, then that's fine as long as you can. This is why I always say the status quo is undefeated, because the status quo is what it is. It creeps in a certain direction, and that seems very intentional. And it cannot be accidental that the positions that Republicans are holding today and attempting to weakly defend would have been far to the left of 90s Democrats. Realistically. And that happened in my lifetime. And like the fact that we were sitting on a $40 trillion worth of debt, we're walking up to 40 trillion. And you can very easily look, you know, when I was in high school, it was not even $10 trillion. So we've done incredible damage that I don't think ever gets undone in that. And that seems like intentional.
So I've been studying, by the way, the debt. And I think our debt is about $2.4 trillion right now. I think the other $38 trillion that is creeping up just doesn't exist, right? It's future setting. So I look at, you know, I was also told, we've seen this everywhere. Forbes magazine in April of 2017 said that China holds 50% of our debt. So I've gotten in and I've looked it up and I've gone through all this stuff. And I just had an economist that was on before that worked in China. And I go, look, I can't even account for but 8% of our debt that is actually owned by China. And I go, am I wrong? And he's like, no. And I was like, then why are these idiots out there telling us that they hold $14 trillion or $15 trillion of our debt?
Justifies a bunch more military spending, I'm guessing.
Right. You start to look at the disparity between the two, and nobody ever digs below the surface to get to the hyperbole that's pushed out by both sides of the parties, right?
No, we are definitely a headline culture.
Yeah. And so everything that I'm seeing shows me that when we start looking at debts, we look at future spending. So we'll do a 10-year plan when we build our budgets, you know, a 10-year plan, and the budget's going to go up $1 trillion. Well, it's really $1 trillion over 10 years because you're building a flight, right? So, and most people don't understand the economics and what that entails. But you look at, I'll use as an example, you look at the Pentagon, who has had 8 audits, they failed them all, trillions of dollars literally disappears. And it's just it's a fiat environment that basically is funny money. But as I start digging into the budgets and looking how we spend money and where the money goes and how it's allocated and everything else, I can't find it. I can't find $37 trillion in debt. Just can't.
Interesting.
New? Is that?
I mean, that could be true. I have not done I take people at the word when they say it, so maybe I shouldn't. I don't take anybody at their word for anything else. So.
Yeah, again, that's why
it doesn't make sense to me that, financially illiterate people run this country, you know, but for their position in some sort of national prominence, I don't think a lot of these people would have any money, and they haven't proven their ability to handle money in any meaningful way. And then they go out there and, they're running budgets for the United States with no experience.
But let me put this in this perspective for you. And I've told everyone, look, I'm a really good system architect. Like, I understand systems really well. You could hand me something and I could like, you hand me a Rubik's Cube, I'll solve it in a minute, right? It's just, I understand the systems. But if you wanted to take more meat off the bone from the American people, if you wanted to keep them starving or at least hungry all the time, it would make sense that you would justify it with a 37, 38, 39 trillion dollar deficit, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, it just doesn't exist. It's not there. Can't see it.
Open to it. I'm open to that being true.
And maybe they have some secret little lever on the budget documents that I'm not getting. And I did use a little bit of AI to kind of decipher where the line items are and how they actually align with our budgets. Anyway, I think it's fascinating that we could even operate at a $37 trillion deficit given what our GDP is, and what I said not be true. So
more on that later, I guess.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun conversation you and I will have another time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you what I'm looking at, and I mean I just asked Dan about it, who's fascinating to listen to because he's a part of the economic cycles between the CCP and the United States, and he's like, yeah, that checks. It sounds like you're spot on as far as what our debt really is, and I'm like, damn it, why is it that everyone keeps saying $38 trillion then? Anyway, it's just
it sounds awfully scary.
It does sound scary, actually.
Sounds like a nation that's insolvent.
Yeah, which is maybe what they want us to be on the brink of insolvency. So we keep working harder to run on the wheel.
I love the wheel. I'm all about the wheel. I ran on a treadmill today, so that's like running on the wheel.
Yeah. Can we talk about your friend, your favorite person? Do you know who your favorite person is?
My wife.
Your favorite? Well,
yeah, my wife.
No, it's definitely
not
Kardashian. It's
Kardashian
Patel. Yeah, I think it's you're not the actual favorite. Kardashian Patel gave testimony to Congress being asked about children being trafficked by Epstein. I want to play this because I said before, look, I really care about victims. And but if we don't get to the bottom of the election fraud, then there'll continue to be victims that get covered up by people like Patel. But let's go ahead and play it.
There's no credible information.
Yep.
None.
Yeah.
If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.
I love the way that we play these word games in the files. Right?
Yeah.
That we have. You notice the emphasis?
Yeah.
There's always this word game being played. And I don't know who's coaching it, but it doesn't matter who you get in that chair representing the FBI. They always do the same nonsense. They always just dance around. They just dance around the truth with these sort of plausible.
They lie.
You know, every person that's listening goes, that's a lie. And then you get down to the technicality and they're like, well, it really kind of depends on the definition of what the word is. It kind of depends on what the word trafficking means specifically in that moment. He said that we have. Does it mean that the FBI has access or views other things like maybe that ODNI has access to in the clearinghouse of all the intelligence community agencies? And they can see other information, but it's not FBI's information. So in the files, you know what I mean? And here's the thing. They did the most government thing that you could do when they dumped these files over the weekend. It doesn't get more federal government than this. Number one, it was sloppy, and I'm not even convinced it was because they were trying to be sloppy and be disingenuous. I don't think they actually have the ability to do a calculated and capable layout for the American people to follow, even chronologically, what it is that they were doing. They just slapped a bunch of crap out there, and it's in this horrible format. That is not the way that the FBI does business. If anybody knows, why do they not have a debrief from the case agent or the case agents? Because that's what I would have done. If I was a transparent guy, I would have taken my case agents, even if you had to distort their voice or their face, but you don't need to. Like, they're federal agents. They do this for a living. They could testify very easily. And you get them up and you'd have them do a case presentation on why we're now going to decline prosecution for any further. Here's where we started. Here's what the predication of the case was. I talked about this on my podcast this morning, just for people's awareness. Every FBI case is opened in what's called an opening EC, or electronic communication. And so they lay out, this is the federal law we think was violated. Here's the allegation or information that the federal crime happened and this person did it. And then here's what sort of mechanisms we use to try to gather evidence. So we did the following different legal procedures, whether it be subpoena or national security letters or whatever. They go through all those things. These are the bank records we seized. This is the search warrant results. These are the interviews we did. These are the sources we recruited. Here's the debrief of the sources. Here's what they said. Here's what we did when we followed up on those leads and checked them out. Here's what other offices came. You go through the case. Or you can just dump 3 million files and just toss them out there and say, you make sense of it, dummy. They're not even serialized the way the FBI does it. The FBI puts everything into the files that they have sequentially, like every rational person. When I add a document, that's document number 101. Next document is number 102. Next document's number 103. The evidence is going to be broken up. Some of it is in electronic format, so it has a different kind of code than the stuff that's going to be in physical format, and so on. There's ways that you send information and you present information so that when you look at it, it's not chaos. And rather than do that, what do? They just puked it all on everybody, and they were like, you make sense of it, dummy. Here's 180,000 pictures. Here's 2,000 videos. Here's 3 million files, documents. It's like,
yeah,
thanks,
but I mean,
man.
it's and you try to download it all you can because they've redacted vast majorities of it. And then you have emails that are you read and you're like, how in the world are you redacting this? This person should go to prison, right? And they've had this information.
Transparency equals things Republicans like. This is what Steve Friend has helped me realize. When you hear the word transparency, it just means things we like if you're generally a conservative person. And if you're a person on the left, then the word democracy means things that we like. Transparency and democracy are interchangeable bullshit words.
Yeah, well, I think
for the left and the right.
I think that is actually a brilliant way to look at it because
there's a lot of this stuff. But you start realizing the word games. Listen, I'll just add this as one other little word game. Yeah. As you're listening to what's going on in Minneapolis right now, as people are listening, code your mind so that when you hear the word neighbors, you hear the word comrades. Because all of these people on the political left are talking about their neighbors, but they're really talking about their comrades because they're Marxists, and they're just switching up the language on us. And so things we like is democracy, which, by the way, democracy is the worst thing that can happen in the United States.
It's mob rule.
It's literally what the founders were trying not to have happen. They fought tooth and nail. They removed the democratic process so that it was always through filter. It's like we're going to have democratic votes in our houses of Congress, but we're going to filter the lower house so that each individual group, you have to appoint your own representative, so only one person gets to represent this number of people. And on the other side, they wanted the states to be represented, so you represented yourself through state legislature, and then they got to pick a senator, and the senator would come in and do it. Everything that our country did was against democracy, but the left loves democracy, so it means things they like. And Republicans always act like there's going to be transparency, even if they're really bad at it. And so they don't really mean actual transparency. It just continues to be, it's like, look what we've done. And under the great leadership of Donald Trump, it's nonstop this. It's always this knob slobbery where we have to do, Steve Friend was telling me this the other day too when I was talking to him on Friday. He said that calling Donald Trump the greatest leader in the history of all things is the Republican version of a land acknowledgement, where like the lefties get up like they did at the Grammys and they go, I just want to acknowledge that we're on stolen land right here where we're doing our little celebration. It's the same thing. It's like you must homage the leader.
Let me be a arbiter of a little bit of reality, though. I mean, because I'm actually a fan of President Trump's for a lot of reasons, because he's inside. Imagine this just for a minute, right? Imagine if you had 500 No. Imagine if you had 500 Julie Kellys.
I quit.
Why are you not making this easy on me? Just
I don't know.
hear me out.
Just no to whatever comes after that. You have 500 Julie Kellys. No to whatever comes next. I'm out. Joe, I can't do it. I don't know what it is, but God gave me God will not give me battles I can't fight. I can't fight that battle. Whatever it is, stop.
Okay, so just imagine. I should have used something. There's got to be someone in the middle of that somewhere. Like,
yeah, there must be.
All right, so let's say you had 500 Julie Kellys, and you had 400 Dan Bonginos, and you had 500, 400, and you had 100 Kardashian Patels. Okay, so you have 1,000 of them, right? And
your math checks.
Yeah, is that right? Okay, got it.
I think so.
So you got 1,000 of these.
Listen, just proactively, I'm calling in a drone strike. I'm going to go on this.
Okay, but
I actually
you'd have to wipe out the.
I thought that's what Donald Trump said he was going to do too. I thought he was coming in to wipe out the bad stuff. So just
I mean, look, here's the problem is that I learned this saying that it's actually better to rip the Band-Aid off. It's totally better to rip the Band-Aid off. Frankly, sign the Insurrection Act, go in there, get military tribunals, put people in, arrest 50,000 people, hang them by their neck, hung, whatever you want to call it. You can say whatever you want. I want them hung. I want them hanged. Whatever you want to say, vernacular-wise, I don't care. I want them by the end of a rope, barely able to touch the ground. I want them to suffer for what they did to our country, right? Period. It's treason. Okay. Now, let's say you had 1,000 of them, and you walk in, and your family is over here, and you're like, what these 1,000 people are doing is absolutely horrid. But 500 of those 1,000 people, when you walk in, are like, I'm here for you. I'm your biggest supporter. While they fork their tongue and walk over here and placate you, but privately, they're doing everything they can to sabotage you. Now, the only thing you're looking at is your family. The only thing you care about is your family. You walk in there, family meaning, I actually truly believe you care about the community too, or you wouldn't want to fight as bad as you do, right? But let's just say you're looking at your family as an example of the harm that would be done to your family. You're going to stand in front of it. And the only way to do it is to go into the lion's den with those 1,000 people and fight. Would you do it?
Yeah, but you just said that 500 of them want to come up there and placate me. That's literally what happened. That's what happened to these guys that walked in there. That your examples, they got placated.
100%.
Donald Trump loves some good, flattery. He has an inability to resist people that say he's doing the greatest job.
Yeah,
it's his biggest weakness, and that's a form of pride. And I'm not saying we don't all have pride, because we all have pride, and it manifests in different ways. But watching Donald Trump allow people, does he not know that he ends up in prison and dies in prison if this continues the way it goes? Like, that's the way it goes. I'm looking very, very I'm not actually even guessing. I'm taking the other team, the other side, whatever it is, his other side, because I'm not on either team. I look at what the Democrats are even saying right now, and their goal is holding guys from ICE accountable in tribunals, and they don't miss from what I've seen. Ask the January 6ers. So I don't know if you watched this, but Donald Trump went on Dan Bongino's podcast this morning.
Yeah.
And he sounded thrilled, by the way. That was like the most unenergetic version of Donald Trump I've ever heard. And he brought up the story of Tina Peters, did he not? And what did he say?
He got it wrong.
Well, he got it. Not only did he get it wrong, but he was like, they've got her in prison, and she's 73, and she's 71. Sick, and she's whatever he said. I thought he said 73. So he may have got that wrong too. Anyway, he said she's in prison, and she's not well, and she's sitting there, and they better release her real soon. You're the president of the United States of America, or aren't you? So if we're going to do strongman stuff, and they're going to accuse you of being a strongman, which is what they've accused him of doing, just earn it. Yeah. Either the government has a monopoly on violence, or it doesn't. And as we're seeing right now, what's going on in Minnesota, where we're seeing what happened in Los Angeles before then, and Chicago as well, what we've seen is the federal government has actually, because Republicans are gentle and they don't want to cross that bridge, and I'm not saying it's good for the country. I think it's bad for everybody, both sides of it. It's all bad. But I don't think there's an easy way to get through the other end of it without actually seizing a monopoly on violence. So either the federal government has it or it doesn't. And since it's choosing not to have it, and you can't even get a 71-year-old woman out of prison in Colorado, you don't have the physical ability to do it, you don't have the temerity to actually attempt it, then where are you going to end up? You're going to end up with people doing exactly what's going to end up happening that I think we predicted probably 2 years ago. It's going to get Western. It's going to be like the law is far away, and the people in the community are going to handle things. And that's going to be interesting and strange and scary for a while. And in some communities, that'll be totally fine, because communities can be trusted with it. Some communities cannot. And you'll probably have some cities burn. So I look at this and I just go, I've already heard what the other side, from what my values are, says they're going to do. And I believe them. What I don't see is the people who claim to be closer to my side acting as though the threat is real. And so we see pussyfooting around. It took a year to get down to Fulton County. It was 5 or 6 years late. Why? I mean, what did you think you were going to find there? Maybe you found it, maybe you didn't. The evidence has already been, it's already been adjudicated by a lot of people. The people who could have done this chose not to do it. Why do any of the people who said they didn't want to do election integrity investigations, why do they even still have a job in these agencies? Wouldn't that be the first thing you go and you clear them out if you're going to talk about going into a room and fighting the people? How about the people that said, we're not interested in doing election integrity, we're only interested in looking for voter suppression? That's whatever version of the DOJ and all the civil rights attorneys. And they kept them. And they kept all the people at FBI that said the same things. And all the senior managers there. So all the mechanisms that we're relying on to be sort of the fail-safe so we don't have to do violence on our own, they've all already sort of said where they're at. They're just willing to do whatever they're told. And they will immediately, like I made a prediction the other day, and I think it's 100% accurate. The people in the FBI that are today investigating Antifa and are looking into Don Lemon and are willing to try to hold people accountable for their misbehavior in various different cities, working on the political left, they're using counterterrorism tools, and they're using the case file, which is a 266 Oscar. It's the same thing that was applied to MAGA people. It's the same thing they used on J6ers, okay? Right. They will now use them on the political left, and I guarantee you they will use those same things, and the exact same FBI agents that are doing that today, who went after January 6ers like not 2 years ago, will go after ICE agents in 3 years. 100% chance those people will do the same thing that they were always told. So the system has zero principle, and the people who are running the principle or running the system have no instinct to actually seize the reins and act like they're in charge.
Well,
So
I mean, you're
that's
you're
what I'm talking about.
Listen, everything you just said is absolutely correct, 100%. But let's bridge the other problem that we have. We have a judiciary that is rotted to the core. Mm-hmm. We have judges that are basically standing. They have stood against 171 different executive orders and mandates by the president. Yeah. More than any of the last 6 presidents combined, including President Trump when he was first term.
Look, I just saw a thing this morning, and it said that there was a appeals court decision that vindicated Judge Boasberg. So the appeals court sided with the lower court, which sided with the magistrate judge. The government protects the government no matter what happens. That's been my experience as well as a whistleblower. Right. So so I agree with you on that. Those are all true. That happens at every level in every place.
So what we're dealing with,
just the judiciary, it's the executive branches too.
But Kyle, we have to be honest about this part, right? And that is that when they sprung 2020 on us, because 2016 wasn't supposed to happen. President Trump was not supposed to win, right? And if you look at the election records, I went through the cast vote records. I did it for 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. The amount of stealing of elections rose considerably on the down ballot issues. County commissioners, school boards, I mean, they basically they have the mechanisms in place to steal all of them. In order for 2020 to happen, you had to have proper density. This is a old playbook that goes back, 500 years. This isn't today. It's a slow boil. That's why they talk about the frog in water, right? Hmm. So you have to have proper density. Once they knew they had proper density and they planned for it in 2019, in 2020, they already knew where they were going with this. They already knew that the judges were going to be able to block it. They had enough states that they owned that even the good judges, you'd have good judges. Let's say it's 40% good judges. Let's say it's 40%. 90% of the 40% will not go against the status quo because they're afraid of actually getting their head cut off. So you only have 10% that are willing to do the right thing, and 50% are captured completely. Mm-hmm. By the density index. Right? You have to have a certain density. Once you have that density, game's over.
Yeah.
So the president
this is not a new problem. This has been well addressed, and this is like as far back as people have been looking at sort of the dynamics of power. Machiavelli pointed out that you basically have 2 solutions to a state when you take over government. And what we were expecting, and what I saw from the initial sort of flurry of executive orders that happened in January of last year, was like a hostile takeover. And it was in 2 ways a hostile takeover. It should have been. And it needed to happen in every single agency, it turns out. My old agency is the one that I'm most familiar with, and it needed to be done there for sure. But the way you do a hostile takeover, you look at it in both like a business way. You got to come in and seize the means. You need to seize the information and the mechanisms. You need to freeze everybody and all the hiring and anybody that got promoted, right? So that's part one. And then the second thing is you look at it sort of like a war of attrition where you're trying to take a beach. You have to take territory and get a foothold. Otherwise, you don't own that territory at all. And Machiavelli actually said it. It was real straightforward. You have 2 basic choices with an entrenched government that is antithetical to your beliefs and what you are trying to accomplish. You can exile them or you can execute them. That's it. So either you keep them in federal service and you move them somewhere where they can no longer cause a problem, which is the recommendation I made for people that were in the FBI, that, problematic folks, all the, Jim Comey and the Chris Wray promotees, but every agency had some version of a bad director or a bad, secretary that did that. So they all needed to be they either needed to be exported somewhere where they could no longer cause problems, exile, or they needed to be executed, which is in this case would just be termination. You no longer work here. Nobody came in with the balls to do the thing that needed to be done. How come we haven't seen the mass terminations? If you're going to fight them all in court anyway, which they did, every single thing they do, at least it would take 3 or 4 years and you'd have a chance to try to right the ship so that when you do bring them back, they're the minority. They didn't do those things. So if you're going to go full on, brimstone and blood, then you need to spill all the blood really, really fast. And they've been slowly leaking out. And we've had a couple of different people removed in a couple of different agencies. And we've fought a couple of different court cases about whether or not we could replace this person who's the head of this agency. It's like, shut the whole agency, tell everybody to go home, pay them the salary if you want, because you feel like you're going to have to pay them anyway. The money's not important. It's what they do that's important, and take that away from them. And I saw a man in his 80s who used to be a Democrat and now is still a Democrat from the 90s. He's just running under a Republican label. That's what I see in Donald Trump. I'm not mad at him. I knew exactly what he was. I voted for my friend Steve Baker not to go to prison. But there is no way you can convince me that Donald Trump is the quote unquote most conservative president in our lifetime. It doesn't mean I dislike him. I held a lot of common thoughts with Democrats in the 90s. I'm sure I do still. There's a few places where I think that Trump is even further left than they are. But at the end of the day, 90s Democrats represent the right wing of American politics today. And then there's guys like me. And the left wing of American politics is walking up to the edge of communism or Marxism or socialism or whatever you want to brand it as.
But it's it's a systemic rot, right? No matter how you put it.
But there is no political right in this country. And Donald Trump sort of pitched that to people. For example, Joe, if we're going to fund the entire government on tariffs, which was one of the promises, I went back and read it was called Agenda 47, and it was the 20 promises he made. One of them was get rid of the IRS and fund everything on tariffs. You can only do that if there's only about 10% of the government still in effect. So the reason that we used to be able to fund the government on tariffs is because our government was 90% smaller than it is today. And you could do that, and that'd be fine with me. Like almost everything the government does, I'd rather the state do. Even if they tax me individually at the state level, that would be fine. But if you make bold promises like that, and then you don't even come close to achieving them, and then you got Howard Lutnick out there telling you that you've created a golden era, and a lot of Americans are trying to figure out how to go from paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. And then you look at, the institutional rot we see in Minneapolis, and we see the same thing in California, we see it in Colorado, we see it everywhere else. And I guess that I know I've said before that we're headed towards a place of the break. I call it the break, right? So it's a place where it's just going to break wide open, floodgates. We're gonna knock out all the evil. Now, do I think we're going to knock out all the evil? No, I don't.
But I think if that happens, it's going to be tumultuous. It's not like it's like everything's gone. You wake up tomorrow and it's good. I think it's rocky for a while.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I said the same thing to Mike Adams the other day. We were talking about it. He goes, "Do you think the system can continue?" And I said, "No. I think our scaffolding is built so shaky and on such bad foundations, and we've and I don't blame any generation. So there's this thing, and I guess I'm technically a millennial, even though I feel like more like a Gen X guy. I'm right on the edge by a few months. Right. And so I've got an analog childhood and experience. My first internet connection I remember being of any kind of substance was when I was 16, that kind of thing, right? Yeah, exactly. I remember records, and I remember, 8-tracks and tape players and all of that. I was a VHS kid. So I remember what that was. When I look at this, I don't think the world falls apart, and I don't think there's anyone that's alive today that's to blame for this. That's the other crazy thing. Like, everyone wants to blame somebody. They started undermining this at the turn of the last century. So our country has been slowly eroded by a lot of things. One of them, democracy, aka things we like. If you're a leftist, what they've done is they've democratized the vote. Yes. And a bigger voting block is actually not a good thing. There's plenty of people that probably shouldn't be able to vote, and the founders knew that. Not everybody's got skin in the game in the way. And by the way, the people who used to be the landowners that did vote, what were they doing? They were responsible for everybody that they employed. So they had to make good decisions for themselves and their businesses, and also the families that existed because they were out there. And if those families didn't continue, they couldn't just burn through them and have them die. Like, people don't act like that. And so there was all this sort of like, there's this belief that it's a zero-sum game in capitalism, but human beings are very altruistic in a Christian society. They happen to be. There's plenty of people that will take advantage of it, but there's also a lot of people that will give and do things in a truly honorable way. And so anyway, we got away from it. We democratized the vote. We expanded the franchise in multiple different ways, all of which have basically resulted in not good things for this country. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a bigger franchise than we did then. I just don't think they went about it in a good way. Then they also went and they gave the government the primary power of taxation. So the 16th Amendment allowed for the government to centralize power by being the first one who gets a crack at your paycheck. And if Americans wanted to do a tax strike, most Americans would not be in a position to do that if they're a W-2 employee, which is going to be most of the audience listening to you right now. You don't have the ability to just not pay your taxes. How would you go about it? The company you work for is already taking them out. They already get the first crack.
Well,
So
I
there's a small
actually,
number of people that can.
I actually thought about not. Sorry, I actually think I was just writing this stuff down that you were saying. I'm gonna address it with you offline. Some of my thoughts, just so we can, iron sharpens iron. So I think that having a conversation with you about it's good. I'm afraid I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble.
That's probably inevitable at this point.
Kyle, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to ask you. What's the answer then?
I think it has to break. Yeah, no, I think the federal system has to break the way that it's set up right now. I just don't think it's sustainable.
But the states are captured one by one. So one by one, they basically fill the
I agree with you, but look, if Americans look at Washington, D.C. as the place from which power emanates, then we are not living in the United States of America. We are living in the federal district of Washington, D.C., or whatever the hell that means. The founders didn't see this country being formed that way. We went centralized control, and we became the thing that the anti-federalists were trying to make us not be, and the reason that the Bill of Rights was constructed. The country was formed as a check and a balance against its own instincts, so the government couldn't come in and do stuff. One of the things they weren't supposed to be able to do is come into your paycheck right away. And that 16th Amendment, that's 1913, that goes back, like I said, there's not a single person. The people, and we got the Federal Reserve back then, and that obviously also pulled something away from our sovereignty. And then the last thing is that you took away the direct election of senators, so you made our legislative branch no longer functional. If we didn't have the 17th Amendment right now, then you would look at the states and you would find out if there's a majority of Republican states, which there are, you would have a red Senate that could actually pass things at a 2/3 majority. You wouldn't have to be playing shenanigans and having the VP come in and vote. That was supposed to be like a worst case scenario tiebreaker. And right now we basically toss this little beanbag back and forth at a razor's edge from 48 to 52 to 49 to 51 to 50-50 with the tiebreaker from the VP. It's complete garbage. It is not the way that the Senate was meant to do. The Senate was meant to operate under supermajority, so you regularly did not pass a bunch of bullshit laws that the states didn't agree to as proxies for the people, because the state was the government that actually was supposed to rule over you. And if you devolved some of that power, people would have an awful lot more care about who their state representatives are, which I don't think people, I don't know who my state rep is, and I've never gone and bitched to him because he's significantly less powerful. What happens in Austin is weak compared to what happens in Washington, D.C. when it comes to funding and broad policies and the way the country operates. It shouldn't be. So I think the answer is it has to break. And it has to devolve back to what it was actually designed to be, which is funny because that's a 10th Amendment revolution. That's a, return to founding principles. And I say this naively, but when I heard "Make America Great Again," and I don't think I was alone in this, I heard "Make America Constitutional Again," focus in on what the document was meant to be. It's actually not all that crazy.
But it's not.
'Cause it aspires to something. Yeah, it's not, but that's not what's happening.
But the other part is we have to deconstruct this a little bit and look at the fact that they use systems like elections. And look, I 100% know exactly how they stole the elections. I know how they stole them across the board. I understand exactly what principles they used, how they did it, and it was done by intelligence communities overseas that captured information and used that information inside in order to basically create proxy votes that were allowed to steal elections for radical leftists. and they eroded our communities. So there has to be a checks and balance against the states as well at the federal level. So you have the federal government that's out of control, but you have the states that one by one are out of control that have allowed the federal government to get out of control because they're stolen. So you have this thing that's happening up and down where the states.
I don't know if that's the answer. I think it's further down. I think the counties are the ones that need to, like, you should be more.
Because the election systems are fraudulent and you can't get the access to the information.
Agree.
Right?
All of that
Chicken
only
and egg.
happens. It only happens in a chaotic break, which you talked about a break. I do think that happens. If the structure breaks, the revision has to be exactly what it was meant to be. The government that is closest to you, that touches you most frequently, should be the one that is most powerful over what goes on in your life.
100%.
It should not be a Washington, D.C. decision whether or not me here in Liberty Hill or Leander, Texas, makes a decision about how we're going to, fund sports teams, or, whether girls can go into bathrooms or not, or whether they have to worry about guys going in the locker room. That shouldn't be a federal question even a little bit. And there shouldn't even be money that's at stake at the federal level, because we don't even give the money there. We fund our own stuff, and then we give to the national, priorities, which should be really narrow. The craziest thing is our federal government has basically exploded under the concept of one line that Congress has, which is the Interstate Commerce Clause. Like, the ability to regulate interstate commerce is not what they use it to do, but it justifies almost every federal department in crazy ways. We have agencies that no one's even heard of except for the people who work there. People who worked in the federal government that walk around in Washington, D.C., and you see a building, and you're like, what goes on in there? And then you find out, and you're like, holy crap, we have an entire building and government agency dedicated to whatever this weird thing is, and there is zero use for it. And nobody even knows they exist. And if they ceased existing tomorrow, nothing would change for anybody except the people that work there. There are hundreds of federal agencies like that. So, again, I think that the only way it gets smaller is a break. I don't think there's a peaceful way to do that. I don't think we vote our way into that, Joe. Like, that would be highly naive. I can't get there.
You know that I can't get there either, which is why I'd rather President Trump do it. I'd rather him just sign a document and bring them in. Bring in the feds, hold 50,000 people accountable, put them in front of military tribunals, bypass the judges, make some of them judges for doing what they've done that are unconstitutional acts. Make sure that you hold everyone accountable for the election fraud, which means you're going to have governors, senators, congressmen that are actively participating in the destruction of our country. They know about it. They know about it. They planned it.
The Romans did this. That's what the term dictator comes from. They would appoint someone to come in and be the dictator for a period of time, for a finite period of time until the crisis was over. The only problem is when that person decides that it's a crisis for life, which happens a lot in what we see in some of these third world nations. If there was a check against that, limited term, somebody with coming in and doing the American Caesar routine, and I don't know if you and I have ever had this conversation before, but I've had it with a number of people that are pretty interesting and very diverse in their educational background. I've talked to guys that have read every single history book they can get their hands on, and they're high school educated and they never went to college, and they have proposed a American Caesar. I've talked to people who have worked in the intelligence community and done coups overseas that have overthrown governments and installed American puppets. They have also proposed an American Caesar. And I've talked to guys in the special operations community who have all proposed an American Caesar. And you know what's crazy? Everybody lands on the same exact profile of who and what this American Caesar looks like. And it's not Donald Trump.
Why?
It's not.
How?
Because he's old, because he's chubby, because he's 80 something years old, and he's a 90s Democrat. He doesn't have it. The American
nobody
Caesar
else. If he doesn't have
Caesar,
it,
listen, it's been war gamed. It's been war gamed, and it's not Donald Trump.
I'm telling you, right now, if it's not President Trump, then we have no hope, because the courage that it takes, right? And by the way, I'll come back to what I said before, which is what I said this morning. I said, "Good morning, God is good," right?
True.
But God, and I just want to say that He picks the most imperfect, improbable person to be that person, to be that Julius Caesar, to be that Abraham, to be that Noah, to be that Job, to be that Daniel, I can go down the line. None of those people. I mean, if you look at...
It's always someone young and bold. It just is.
But it's not. Look at Abraham. Look at Abraham. I mean, he was not young at all.
But also didn't realize the vision. He just was the one who received the promise.
But he received the promise, but what did he receive? How old was he? Like 180?
Yeah, I got you. I'm telling you, you can look at geopolitics and say that the American Caesar is not an old man. It can't be, because the boldness that is required It doesn't happen from someone who's in their 80s. It doesn't happen from someone in their 60s.
Bro, I'm just telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. I am telling you as firmly as I'm sitting in front of you right now. God is going to surprise us all. But whoever's going to end up in leadership, it's going to be someone very unlikely that doesn't want to be there. That frankly, like I don't want to run for governor. I'm running for governor. Why am I doing it? How the hell if I know, right? Because nobody else talks about the people.
Yeah, you deeply want to do something right, and the question is like, can you as an executive steer back from a state that keeps flirting with its own demise and not realizing that how dumb it is? The crazy thing is this. I think if I radicalized my wife. Do you know the story about my wife?
Oh yeah.
She grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
She's the daughter of a. What is my mother-in-law's background? She claims that she's Jewish, or at least she did for a period of time, but no longer. She grew up in some sort of like half-assed Christian faith that she abandoned. She's kind of like a agnostic, I think, if I had to guess. I don't really know what her religious beliefs are, but I think she scoffs at the concept of God. So agnostic might be friendly. And my father-in-law is an actual atheist, and he literally told me he doesn't think people should have property rights. So he sort of espouses a legitimate communist. I don't say it like he's a commie. Like, I mean, he actually doesn't think people should own property. Right. He told me that it's atrocious that people can pass on their wealth to the next generation. It should go to the state. So, like, that's what my wife is the product
communist. Yeah,
legitimately. And she came up in a very caring field. She's trained to be a counselor, which is full of a lot of very soft, nice, well-meaning, leftist crazy people that affirm gender and a bunch of other wild stuff. And so that's where she came out of. And when I met her, I radicalized her by just talking about numbers. I mean, Joe, we just had like real simple conversations. It's like, well, the best thing to do for somebody who's in that position is to have them work for the people that they think they're going to help for free and watch those people reject the free help. Like, try to help somebody who doesn't want help and watch them not get better. And so she did that as a counselor. She worked for almost no money at a nonprofit and watched people who valued her time none. And she valued her time tremendously because she spent a lot of time getting into it. She didn't even get thank yous for doing what she was doing as a person with a master's degree that we funded out of pocket from a private school. And that radicalized her. That and the fact that we started talking about money, and she said, everybody should just pay the same percentage of their income for taxes. And I was like, oh, a flat tax. She's like, yeah. I go, oh, okay, cool. Like, you're the most right-wing person in the room. Did you know that? The progressive tax structure is not even something that people are even talking about. A flat tax makes sense for fairness. So people who are on the left oftentimes, I think, are in the same category as my wife in her 20s. They think that what's fair means everybody should have a good outcome. But once they dive into the mechanics of it, and maybe if you're a governor who speaks plainly to people and you just explain what you're asking for is actually tyrannical to you and any future that you might hope to have. Like, you're betting against yourself. And when people understand that, I think they actually do come back over and they recognize that being a 90s Democrat and a liberal, the Donald Trump style, it's not a bad position. It probably was the maximum position of the United States. It was like, for all the lies that took place over all the decades that we've been, seeing lies, we did pretty good in the 80s and 90s.
We did.
At least we.
I thought we did. I thought it was amazing. Are you kidding me?
Even we were the good guy.
Even in the bad of the bad in the 80s and 90s, it was still awesome. It still makes these pansies look like pansies today, in my opinion. But
well, and think about what was there. We had actual community and connectedness and not internet connectedness, which is fake. We had actual, we had a lot of people lying to us, but people sort of didn't even plug into that.
No.
We had actual racial harmony. You can go back and look at every single thing that I used to watch when I was a kid and things that you watched as a young adult. We got a couple years between us. There's a little bit more gray in your muzzle. I mean, yeah, exactly. Everybody watched things and nobody cared what the skin color was. We had basically transgressed. We moved past that. And it didn't come back again until someone tried to highlight it that it was a problem. But, there were places when I found out that there was still some existing pockets of racism. And what did we think? We thought they were backwards. We were like, that really?
What the hell's wrong with these people?
Yeah, what's wrong with these people? That's not normal. Because it was ignored. It was the minute you stopped talking about it, kind of Morgan Freeman style, the minute it went away. And instead, we've kind of progressed down this other slope where we've hyper-fractioned, we've moved hard to the left. There is no right, which means that we have no balance and no potential for it. So maybe, a Joe Oltmann in Colorado can help pull them back from the brink of crazy. But I don't know what your odds are there. And they seem low if the election system's captured.
Yeah, I mean, no, it is. But if President Trump does what I think he's going to do, which I think is going to happen this week or next week, then we have.
What does that look like? Okay, what does that look like?
Get rid of machines. Get rid of mail-in. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to. So mechanically, you have to declare a state of emergency. Now, whether that's the Insurrection Act or a state of emergency based upon information they've uncovered related to the 2020 election that shows that the machines and mail-in ballots were used in concert in order to overthrow the American system, right? So that was done on a state level and it was done on a federal level. It wasn't just done on the President Trump election. It was done down ballot in multiple ways. Sure. And laws have been enacted as a result of that across the country by fraudulent means at state level and national level that has enslaved people. You have to look at that. So we're going to have to back up basically a couple decades.
Okay, we're going to ignore some of the actual authorities that are supposed to exist, and we're going to step up. We're going to do a American Caesar.
This is a Caesar moment.
Yeah,
right. And I'm glad you said this because when I talk about Brutuses and Judases and where President Trump is, you've heard me say it before. You and I have talked about it very clearly. If you have Brutuses and Judases, in other words, you have people that betrayed Jesus, or betrayed God, which we have, and you have people that betray the president and or Caesar, which we have, right? Both of those things, and it wasn't just Brutus that stabbed him. He just said it to Brutus. In other words, you too. Like he was surprised by the fact, out of the people that were stabbing him, right? So
many people.
And so we have to look at this from the standpoint of how do we create a cover around President Trump so that he can make these decisions, which over the last 5 years, I've been praying for this veil to be lifted. I'm like, God, just lift back this veil, let more people see it, create density on the part of Americans. And more videos that you see are black people, brown people, Asian people, people from different countries, people that are here saying the same thing, that what is happening in this country is abhorrent. Like I left this shithole, not to come to this shithole, right? Mm-hmm. Or, historically this happened. Black people in the middle of the ghetto that frankly lived through deserts that we wouldn't even think of, or I did, but I mean most people didn't think of. Those people are coming forward saying, y'all are a bunch of thieves, you're a bunch of crooks, you're a bunch of criminals. They were Democrats. They're not saying I'm a Democrat or Republican, they're just saying you're full of shit, right? They're seeing both sides for what it is. So we're building towards that density over the last 5 years. I truly believe that. Easy to see. I only think that it's 5 to 10% of the country that are retards, right? I really do.
It's probably twice that.
All right, so if I said 5% is 10%, if it's 10% it's 20%.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's safe. I don't actually think most people are retards. What I do think is a lot of people are disaffected or not interested at all. And you can go door to door or ask your friends and neighbors as you walk out in the park, which I do all the time.
Right.
A lot of people have no idea what's going on, and they're happy to not know, and that's why things can happen. So yeah, the people that pay attention to people like you and me, be honest. If you're listening right now, you're a nerd. You're a politics type nerd. You care about what's happening. You're more and more interested in things that you would have made fun of 10 years ago, and that's good, probably, at least for this time. But I agree with you. It's 10 to if you'll double your number, it's 10 to 20% are completely retarded.
Okay, perfect.
So 80% of America is gettable.
Yes.
And I would say that probably 65% of them are post-partisan, if they were really being honest.
Yes.
They've moved beyond partisan politics where, look, this is my joke. You've seen my bacon cheeseburger thing, which, by the way, apparently is anti-kosher.
Yeah.
I found that out. Twitter flagged me. I have this concept of bacon.
Wait, hold on. Say what?
I found somebody basically pulled some code that was assigned to my account on X, and they said that I'm anti-Semitic / anti-kosher because I have the words bacon, cheeseburger, nationalist in my profile. Okay, so there are two concepts, right? One is a country. A country is the landmass, the physical borders, the laws and the rules, and the government that runs it. And then there's the concept of a nation. And the idea of a nation, which is where you get a lot of these people get into the sort of white nationalist, whatever else. Well, I'm not a white nationalist, and I'm not a Christian nationalist per se, because I don't require you to be a Christian to actually share my values. It turns out there's actually a broader group, which I think is 65%, maybe slightly bigger, in this country. And we are, whether you know it or not, a bacon cheeseburger nationalist. And that means that you'll sit down with me at a backyard barbecue, and if I offered you a hamburger and I said, do you want cheese on it? The answer would be yes.
Yes. You want bacon on
cheese.
it?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Do you want bacon on it? Yeah, absolutely. A bacon cheeseburger nationalist is someone that's willing to sit down at a backyard barbecue at me and consume a bacon cheeseburger, which means you don't have the dietary restrictions of being a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jewish person. That doesn't mean that you cannot come to our barbecue also. It just means that that's what we're cooking. And if you want to join us, you can have a modified order. But the group of us, the maximum sort of like dominant culture is bacon cheeseburger nationalism. I actually think that's where America sits, broadly speaking. And if we had a party that just said, look, we want good things for our kids. We want the government to stay out of our business. We want to make sure that we do public goods, but at the lowest level possible to eliminate fraud. We want to see our money go the furthest. We want to be responsible in the world so that we increase good things, but we don't want to find ourselves getting lured into other people's problems that we don't understand or we don't need to get into. We want to help other people by giving them a hand up, but we don't want to go and give them the hand out.
Yes.
We're happy to send troops to stop problems where people are being killed unjustly, but we're not willing to go in there and rule over the ashes of it and try to make like some sort of Halliburton bullshit where we want to, have the Iraq be our cash cow or golden egg goose slayer, whatever. If we had a country that did that, which by the way, we used to kind of think that way. I think we probably were more thinking that way than we actually were that way. But those ideals are very easily palatable by most people, except the people that make all the money and run the stuff that goes on in D.C., which is why it's got to be decentralized. You cannot have D.C. be the epicenter of power in this country, and it was never meant to be.
Well, I mean,
it was never meant to be.
I think I agree with that, but you asked me a fundamental question. You asked me a question on what mechanics look like, right?
Yeah.
So you declare a state of emergency. You have to make mass arrests. Mass arrests has to start this because
who does the arrests?
The federal government. I mean, the military. I think the military has to go in under the edict of treason and sedition on a mass scale that is a conspiracy. It's conspiracy against the government. Who does the
investigations to bring the fact patterns? So and I'm asking you this because I actually really want to know the mechanics of it.
Yeah,
because
so
you're proposing the American Caesar, just
yes.
So people understand. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army. Nobody did that before. Once you do that, you've now told the Senate that you are now not the power I am.
Yes.
Historically,
and I believe that the government has this in the Insurrection Act, that they put that there for a reason, that you have the ability to state that foreign and domestic powers, enemies both foreign and domestic within our reach, and it is perpetrated by the media, right? And that you could see this sickness, this global sickness that's actually brewing based on this rhetoric, based on it's almost like Stockholm syndrome in reverse. But what you do is you sign the Insurrection Act and or an Emergency Act. I looked at this from two, like the Foreign Defense Act or the Insurrection Act. There's also the ability to look at it from a standpoint of sedition and or treason. Treason is much more likely to be the definition of what we're seeing happen on a state-by-state basis. That's my opinion, right?
Treason has to be a wartime crime. Just people use that word in the common sense of it, but legally in the United States Code, it's a wartime crime. So there has to be a. That's why sedition comes in. Just so you're aware. Yeah. The last trace of treason was done was a World War II prosecution. Did they get one over Vietnam? They might.
No, it was the Korean War.
It was,
and.
I feel like the last one that they actually got a prosecution was like 53. But anyway, it's a wartime crime. There has to be an actual declared war and a declared enemy of that war. That's an act of Congress. And so anyway, just so we're on.
It doesn't necessarily have to be an act of Congress if the sedition is happening in real time and that the mechanisms of government are compromised, right? In other words, elections.
It's about aid. Yeah, treason specifically is aid and comfort to the enemy. So there has to be a declared enemy. That's the problem. And the enemy cannot be the nebulous like people who don't do this thing. It has to be a thing. It has to be probably a nation state or whatever, maybe an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization. It's got to be named. It's got to be.
But let's talk about it. We turned the Pentagon into the Department of War, right? We snatched a sovereign you call him what you want, dictator, leader, out of a country while eating Skittles. We have
Was he eating Skittles?
I think. I mean, if I were him, I'd be eating Skittles. You know, the taste the rainbow, baby. Come on, we're gonna pull that guy out, right?
I'm not crazy about that happening, by the way. Only because I just would like us to declare war if we're gonna do war stuff. Well, and I do think that was.
But here's why I'm looking at this differently, right? One. He has to get people to recognize he has to change the mechanism, right? In other words,
he is Trump in this case.
Right. He is Trump.
Okay.
He has to change the dynamic of the density by which the government operates. Right now, the density did not favor him. He had too many mechanisms in place. You had the USAID. And look, I've war gamed this on a board and gone, oh, holy shit, he's got 4 months, he's got 3 months, got 2 months. He still only has a month and a half left. I think he's running up against a thing where he's trying to make sure he has proper density, right? But as you start actually seeing the kind of Overton window kind of shift to a place where this is the maximum opportunity to have the maximum result. Because if he fails, he has no legacy. Okay?
Right. No, he dies in prison, I think. Yeah.
And his family, by the way, goes to, I mean, they're going to kill his family. They're going to kill his family or make him so destitute.
Yeah, that's the other option. I'm telling you, exile or execution, they're actually not negotiable. Like this is 600 years worth of political wisdom, and this has been.
It's how it's happened every time.
Every single time.
Every time.
And it almost always happens bloody. The upside of I think maybe the brilliance of the American system is that we can do things that are less bloody. Doesn't mean that some people don't bleed, but it can be far less bloody. I was watching something about China the other day, and they were talking about how it was a guy from the Chinese perspective making fun of the Boston Massacre because how many people got killed at the Boston Massacre? How many was? I have to look it up. It was like 7 people. It was 7 people. That's like a car accident there. It's just not the way that we look at human life is that we value it more. That's the brilliance of this country in a lot of ways. But we do things in a non-violent way that would otherwise be violent. So
5 civilian deaths.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the joke was, it was a guy on TikTok or Instagram, and he was like 5 million, and they're like, no, 5, and he was like, why don't you just call it the Boston conversation?
Yeah,
because 5 is not very many people in the turn of the world. For the United States to be launched on that being, it was atrocious that 5 people lost their lives in that way, and we spun it into something big. So I don't disagree with you. I do think there's a nonviolent way that you make that happen, or at least a less violent way than what would otherwise happen. And the executions can be just termination of job. They don't have to be death per se.
Per se, but I mean, I do think.
But there's some people that might have earned it, but I don't know what those fact patterns look like. So again, I'm open to it. We do things. You're talking about some scary stuff though for me, Joe, because you're talking about relying on a mechanism that is not built for that purpose. Like I was in the military. I know who's in the military. I know that it's not the same military that I was in, and I was only in. When did I get out? 12. So 14 years ago. It's not the same animal then. There's still a lot of the same types. There's also a lot of not the same types. What sort of authorities are you willing to give people in the military, especially boneheads who are like 17 and 18 years old and are super excited about the first girl they hold hands with and they want to marry her even though she's already sleeping with their best buddy? Because I worked with those guys. I'm not giving them big responsibilities. I'm giving them very narrow tasks, and I'm not sure they can investigate or do any of this stuff. So, turning... The idea of turning over to the military is maybe the scariest thing that you could do in America if you know what is in the military. Some brilliant, capable people. Some utter dipshittery.
Some other people that eat crayons for sure, right? I mean, you're talking about. I love
the crayon eaters, but for a very narrow purpose. It's like you have to give task purpose, and it has to be very tailored to the skill set and the job and so on. I don't know. There's a reason why the founding fathers didn't unleash the military on America. For a very specific reason.
Yeah, so this is where I get into what's the density of America, and what does the American ideal ethos look like. That's why it's really important to understand that even the Civil War was fought by a small minority group of people in this country that fought against each other, right? When the Revolutionary War, same way. So we're not talking about, you had people that basically were the crayon eaters that sat on the sidelines and watched the battles happen, watched blood get spilled, right? They even had huge amounts of people that would spill over into, at times, into those areas, right? When the wrong side won. So there was an anticipation, almost as if it was an act of theater that happened back in the Revolutionary time and in the Civil War time, right? It was almost a scripted outcome. And I'm not saying it was scripted. I'm saying it almost was predicted if you look at the history of both events, right? And the years that went into it. Because, the Declaration of Independence happened prior to the independence of the country. So we basically were predestining what we needed to happen next. So let's, the mechanism
only
is,
because it worked. If it didn't work, then those guys just would have been dead.
Yeah, I mean, history is written by the victors, right?
Correct.
Same thing
yeah, I don't know that it was predestined. It just turns out that the guys who made that declaration survived to tell the tale of it in their own words. And the alternative would have been the insurrection of 1791 or the insurrection of 1776 that they did when they squished something in the colonies had the Brits won.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And we would be having a different conversation today, right? And it would have been the history. It would be
a much gayer conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd have a bunch of Somali, whatever you want to call it, guys that are, our rape numbers as a country would be through the roof.
Yeah, right. What do they call it? Light bulb heads? A light bulb head.
Yeah. It's crazy. But fundamentally, that's where it starts. You have to have density. Once you have density, and inside of the Insurrection Act and or the Foreign Defense Act, I mean, there's two of them. I wrote it up in a huge deal, a brief bluff, actually, bottom line upfront analysis that I've sent in January of last year. I sent it through a guy named Bob Destro and said, give this to the president. I think this is your pathway for how you do it. Again, I did not, I'm just a smart guy that understands systems. I looked at the way the systems work and I was like, if you do this, I think you have the maximum outcome. Now, fast forward through that and go, all right, now what does it look like to have free and fair elections? Well, without doing all the arrests and everything else, he can, by edict, say, by executive order, by emergency order, he can get rid of machines and mail-in ballots, go to in-person, hand count, paper ballots, have to have an ID. He can do that. Now, if the states fight him, he then can send in the military to enforce that without actually firing a shot. That's probably the most likely outcome at this point for the primaries. I think machines are gone. I think the mail-in ballots are gone. I think if a Secretary of State actually fights that, given what we have at the HAVA, HAVA was approved by the majority of states. That is the Help America Vote Act. It federalized much of the responsibilities of elections to the feds, okay? Like it or not, that's what it did, right? So the states agreed. They said that we said that this is true. So President Trump can come in and say, all your systems, throw them out. We found them to be insecure. Here's the report from ODNI, Office of Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard was supposed to release that, kind of like the Epstein files. It hasn't been released on time. He walks in and says, no machines, no mail-in ballots. And then it gives cover for the people to come in and say, now we can play. I don't need the president anymore. I can come into the community and take those machines. I can smash them in 1,000 pieces. And I can get a band of 200, 300, 500 men that says, you want to come against us? Let's go. Then you have less violence, but you have the show of force that is necessary in every community to say, we will do this to where every single person has a voice. We will do it that way. That I think is the most likely outcome, mechanism-wise. Hand counts by precinct, in person, with an ID, must be a U.S. citizen. And I think you're going to find hundreds of people that show up for it. And then you're going to have the left screaming that they've been disenfranchised and we're going to be like, fuck off, right? And get out of office, all of you. And you will see a red wave like you've never seen before, because 40% of the votes that you see in every state are fraudulent. They don't exist. They're fake.
I don't know that a red wave taking it back to a party that's not actually politically right makes as much difference as I would like it to. And look, it's a start. Look, like I said, if it takes us back to being 90s Democrats, we did okay. You know, we had a kind of a dirtbag in the office, in the Oval Office, but at the end of the day, I think Americans in general felt pretty good about where things were in the 90s.
Right.
And their self-worth was high and so on. So that's okay. But it is kind of a funny idea that, like, the fight is to move further left in the political spectrum than when I was, going through high school. For me, that's funny.
Look, I want to return. I want to return to the fact that we don't have illegal entitlements. I want to get to a place where if you come here and you can't support yourself, get out. I do. I want to get to that place where the churches step into the place of helping people rather than the state helping people, because I think the churches could be more effective in doing it. And I think the state has nothing but an active interest in creating more of a slush fund for themselves. It's a thirst that you can't quench, right?
Yeah, I want to have less and less of my paycheck delineated to a federal power system that I see almost no benefit from. I'm sure there are benefits that my tax dollars go to. I just don't know what they are. I'd like to know where they go. That's of value, and nobody can account where my tax dollars go when I write that check. And I write at the end of the year now because I pay my own way, and I don't get a W-2 anymore because that's my life. And so it's like, okay, when I sign that check over, one, it stings to write it all at once. If anyone's never done that in your life, I'll just tell you, it's a different experience. And the first time I had it was a couple years ago, and it was like, holy moly, this is awful. And then the second piece of it is, if I wasn't writing that and that burden wasn't flying over my head at all times throughout the whole year, I still give individual personal charity that cannot be written off. And I would much prefer to be doing that, where it's like, oh, I can either do it as a mechanism through my church, where we've pooled money together and we get a house for somebody whose house burned down and they didn't have insurance, or we feed a family that suddenly, doesn't have a father to provide for them for whatever reason, sick or ill, or injury or long-term or death or whatever. And we step up as a community. That's what I want to be in. People can't do that because now everybody's they've mentally outsourced it to the federal government. It's like, well, we have programs for that. So it's not my business to take care of my neighbor. It's not my business to look after my brother because we have a program for that. That's why I pay taxes. And that's why I vote for more taxes, apparently, if I'm a good person on the left. So that fundamental idea, like those people are not voting because we need to give money because because they're evil. That's the other thing. I hate this demonization of one side or the other. There are clearly, as you said, retarded people, maybe 10% on either side, that have really dumb, bad ideas. Right. There's also a huge number of people that vote a certain way because they think that it's morally good and they actually think that it's helping. They're doing what Ralph does in The Simpsons. Finger up the nose. I'm helping. And they're slowly making the problem worse, or they're continuing it. So I don't disagree with you. But like I said, a red wave to go back to 90s Democrats is a funny saving of this country.
It's not saving. It's giving us a place where we can then claw back and identify what the political system is. Right?
That's the stop. That's the stop for a U-turn. Agreed.
Yeah. And
still
so
funny.
Yeah, but if we don't do that, we have no hope, right? I mean, we're talking. Yeah. Like I'm already actively planning. Like let's get the hell out of here, right? I mean, and where do I have to go? I mean, I have to go to places that I don't know sure I want to go.
That's right.
I'm not sure I want to go.
To be able to save this country, I think some people are going to have to go to some places they're not real sure they want to go to.
Well, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. None of us are making more and more people.
More and more people are warming up to that idea too.
All right, so I want to show you this real quick because remember it was January 6th, 2021 that I was asked to go to the State Department, meet with Pompeo, and brief him on how the election fraud happened on the night of January 5th for the runoff election for the 2 Senate races in Georgia. Okay. I predicted the actual outcome almost identically to what it would have been. I even predicted the mechanics of it. Machines went down, they came back up. We called it the Edison Zero. And you had the ability to then understand that they flipped. So Republicans were up, it flipped, and then Democrats ultimately won. And it happened around between 10 and midnight, 10 p.m. and midnight. You can go back and look at any video. You can look at it. I predicted all of it, wrote it all down, built a model, okay? That model then on it's 2:30 in the morning on the 6th, we're getting ready to wake up. John Eastman's going to go to the Ellipsis. I am headed to go to the State Department, and they say, or excuse me, that's when they told me they were going to the State Department, and they said, Joe, how did you know? And I said, I'm clairvoyant. I said, what do you mean how do I know? I'm a system architect. I know what I'm doing. I read all the manuals. This is how you would subvert the election, and this is what I saw in behavior that would tell me how this would happen. Everyone was shocked. Matter of fact, a couple of people thought, Joe, are you connected to intelligence community? Are you? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, how did you know? And I was like, well, I read all of these things, and then I built this model, and I was like, okay, so this is true. And then I squeezed all the elections from different states together, and I turned it sideways. So I basically took, I don't remember how many, like 10 or 11 elections from different states, and all of the outcomes there. I squeezed them together, turned it, and said, okay, these are the vulnerabilities, and this is how they would steal the election. And this is why that's how they were going to do it. Anyway, Patrick Byrne went on Mel K's show, which I don't even know who Mel K is, but went on Mel K's show to talk about. Lady. I'm sorry?
She's a nice lady.
Is she?
Yeah.
She good? Okay.
I met her a few times. She was a nice lady. She's from New York.
She talking about how Pompeo was briefed on election fraud in 2020. He was briefed because counsel for Pompeo, I'm in a skiff, I'm at the State Department, no phones, paper, hand it to the counsel, and he starts sweating. And he looks up at me and he locks eyes, and I lock eyes with him, and I was like, oh shit, he knows. You know that feeling, Kyle.
Not a good feeling.
You've been in the FBI. You've had times, I promise you, where you're like, you look up or you see something, someone says something to you, they don't even have to tell you anything else. And you're like, holy fuck, this is how it happened. You walk out of the room, you sit together, and what happens? You're like, oh, you compare notes and you're like, yep. Does that happen to you at least a few times in your life?
Sure.
I want to play this real quick. This is where I start to get a little shaky on, they all knew. Like everyone knew. Except for the people they tried to convince the people nothing to see here for 5 years. Play it.
They briefed Pompeo, and at the time they told me Pompeo turned white. Pompeo turned white in shock. And they thought initially that it was as in, oh my gosh, and this happened on my watch. I mean, instead, as later facts came to light, we realized it was no, they figured it out. He's on the advisory board to Fox, and he and Paul Ryan told Fox, we can't do anything to help Trump. If we fight this and prove it's correct, it helps Trump. And they agreed to take the dive and pay some big number.
But we got to remember, Mike Pompeo was fully aware of everything that was happening to Trump and then passed Gina Haspel off to him as if she wasn't involved. So the entire situation between Brennan, Pompeo, Haspel, everyone there, it's all a big mess. But this could start unraveling it. Now, a lot of lives were ruined because of this. Let's not forget that we have all those mugshots from Fulton County, not just Trump, but all those lawyers, all the electors around the country, anyone that questioned the election.
Do we start with him, the head of the CIA, Mike Pompeo?
I'm fine with it. I have no personal connection. Like, if people know, yeah, the question is who allowed it, why'd they allow it? It's always been that. And yeah, I have some stuff offline to share with you that's kind of interesting. But they're talking about the Dominion lawsuit and the dive that they took that Fox ate like $750 million.
$787 million. And literally intensified stuff against me as well. And look, I'm not really that concerned about Mir. I wouldn't have fought for 5 years. I could have gotten out. I had an exit ramp day one. I had a financial exit ramp. People are like, we'll pay you money. Just go away. I was like, yeah, I'm not that guy. You've got the wrong guy. Right?
I think I like it when they do that, by the way. When they got the wrong guy. It's like, well, this is the thing, that this is the only way this stuff gets done. For whatever, anybody who's wondering how it gets done, it's people that step into a space and have redefined what the terms of success look like. It's that your version of winning is not the vision that they have. Their version of winning is you get to walk away with a bunch of money and you just leave us alone to do what we want. Whoever these people are. It was the same thing, and somebody got into a discussion with me about FBI whistleblowers. They're like, how many whistleblowers have there been in the FBI in its history? I go, dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Lots of them. You just don't know who they are. You never met them. You never heard from them. Because their definition of what victory looked like was getting their job back.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that happened to them, generally speaking, was they had to retire with no more promotions in some place they didn't want to live any further. So they got punished by the exile version that we were talking about versus the execution. And their version of victory was get my pension, get out, and then just go on and live my life and be a grump. I'm grumpy about what happened to me. And nobody gives a shit. It's like, well, you got a pension, shut up. Nobody, you know, when you define victory is I get to walk away with some money and nobody bothers me anymore. Well, that's what they define victory as. That's what they thought your victory is. That's the same funny thing that I'm dealing with. It's like, what's different about you? It's like, I define victory as I'm going to inflict as much pain on a bad system as possible. That's my version of victory. I want them to have more suffering than I have, and I'm willing to endure it because I don't give a shit. Like, and not to be callous, but like our family went through a whole bunch, and I know that there's been an awful lot of pain on the other end from the people that did bad stuff, and there will be continued. I'm like, That's the only way this stuff happens, is you make the other side pay more than you did, and you're willing to endure difficulty, hardship, discomfort, and worse.
I did not expect that it would end well for me. I mean, I'll just tell you, I expected something different than what I just got. I didn't expect vindication. I expected that the history book, if ever they mentioned my name, would not be kind or favorable, right? That's what I anticipated, and I was okay with it because I know that in the end, that the history book that God writes is much different than the one we have down here.
Agreed.
So.
Very few men are vindicated in their own time. Yeah. This is something that me and my buddies that went up against the FBI have saying for years now at this point, internally to ourselves. It's like, how wild is it to have vindication in your time?
Yeah.
And when the things that you said happened and then they go out and prove that you're right, it may not have like a great outcome because you don't get anything out of it. It doesn't make you whole.
I'm going to sue 800 people.
Well, good. I hope you do.
I'm going to make them pay. I'm going to make them all pay.
Okay, right? And then we're building a gun store in Montana, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sign me up.
All right, as long as we got that going.
Well, with that said, we're at the end. We always go over, which is awesome. I could sit here and talk to you for like 10 hours. I am doing a governor's debate on Friday night in Douglas County, Colorado.
Okay.
So let's put this up if we can. I will be there with 3 other men. Scott Bottoms, amazing guy. Jason Clark, he's kind of I don't even know what you call him. He says he's a tough guy. He's not. Jason Mixa was, he's the guy that said that I called for people. He's one of those little ebits that said that I was calling for the death of my opponents, which is not what I said. And then Jason Mixell is sheriff in Teller County. Pretty good guy. And then I'll be there as well. So it starts at 5:45 to 6:30, have food. The debate begins at 6:30. I anticipate that the debate questions will not be anything that the people care about, but we're going to continue to sit through it and kind of watch everything kind of play out. So it should be good. Kyle, you should come up for it. It'll be fun.
Is it going to stream?
I am going to stream it, yeah. It'll be streamed on the platforms.
Good. Well, maybe I'll just watch it there. I've already hit my travel budget for the first quarter, which is that I don't like traveling ever.
He hates traveling.
I freaking hate it.
You
know what's the best, Joe? My wife went up to go visit a friend of ours she's hospital bound. She's got a difficult pregnancy, so she's finishing out the last like 10 weeks in hospital. And so my wife was like, I got to go see her. So she drives up to go see her. She takes our little one, which is it was a necessary but interesting choice, our 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And she was away for one day, just the night, and came back. She was like, I hate traveling. I hate everything about it. I was like, I married my person, man. My wife and I both like to be at our house. I want animals that require me to not leave. I don't want to go anywhere. I just, whenever I have to leave the homestead, I'm looking around like, oh man, it's a real opportunity cost. I could be sitting here with my people, with my kiddos.
We need to get you a puppy.
I'm not ready for a dog yet.
I know.
I had a dog. My dog died. She was with me for like 14 years. She was awesome. I'll get another one again. My kids they're almost ready for it. I've got an accident-prone 2-year-old. I don't need a puppy knocking over my 2-year-old right now.
All right, so I just want
she gets a little bit bigger.
I just want you to know that
you have enough puppies for everybody, by the way.
You almost ended up with a puppy. I almost came to your front door with a puppy for you.
No, you don't understand. I'll turn it away.
No, you wouldn't.
I'm heartless.
I would let the kids play with it first, and then you would be like, Joe, I hate you.
You've never seen it. I am a benevolent and aggressive dictator in my household.
I know you are.
My wife.
I know all those things.
Yeah,
I know all those things are true, but I would spend 2 or 3 hours with you, and you would be fine. I already know it. Huh? I totally know you. I almost did. And then Erica's like, it's not there. He's not there yet. Get him to talk about dogs first and talk about lost his dog.
No, it's not on my lease. That's just like I just don't physically have I don't have the space or the ability to have a dog right now.
Yeah, I'd talk to your landlord first and make sure he's okay with it.
He's Indian.
No.
Yeah, not a bacon cheeseburger nationalist, my landlord. Nice guy. Doesn't know how to turn. Couldn't get a bolt out of the ceiling. That was actually one of the funniest things. I moved into this house and there was this bolt sticking out of the ceiling in the kitchen, and I'm like, what what is that bolt about? And he's like, tried to remove it, couldn't get it out. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what the hell's going on there. Like, I thought maybe there was some weird back end to it, or who knows? Like, you don't know, it was like a bolt sticking out of the ceiling. So I grabbed literally the first day I moved in, I threw my ladder up. I went up there with my socket and my impact wrench, my DeWalt, and I was like, took me 1 second, and I was like, I wonder what he did to try to get it out. Like, everything about it made me just ask all the. You ever see somebody like you do it? My buddy came to my house one time trying to get his tailgate to drop. No. I don't. I feel like if we went down this path, we would be in trouble. We'd be canceled.
They have entire rivers filled with shit. Yes, maintenance is not the thing that they have a whole lot of.
Yeah. Sometimes you just do something. My best buddy in the world, we've known each other since we were like in I guess 6th grade, something like that. He came to my house the other day and he couldn't get his tailgate on his Toyota truck down. And he brought it over to me. And he was like, I'm struggling. I'm doing this. And I did one thing. I reached over and I recognized that both sides had to be unlocked at the same time to get the thing to drop. He'd been working on it for like an hour and a half. And I did it in 1 second. I reached down and popped it, and the tailgate fell. And he fell. He literally was standing. He's 6 feet tall. He fell backwards on the ground laughing. You ever had that moment with a buddy where he should have been pissed because it was so easy, but he was so amused about how dumb. Like, he was like, I don't even know what you just did. I did the same thing to my landlord's bolt that could not be removed no matter what he tried. It just took a DeWalt. Sometimes you just need the tool set.
And then you're like, what do you do? Run around with a string and just like wrap it? Like,
Did he grip it with his hands? Was he using a pair of forks that he had tried to like get some leverage on? Was he using like an adjustable pliers, and he just was gripping the cylinder instead of the head of the hex? I don't know what happened. I don't know what caused him to fail at the mission, but it was a very easily achievable mission.
I'm just telling you.
Sometimes you're just the guy for that job. You know what I mean?
There's 2 places where maintenance doesn't exist:
Africa
and India. It doesn't exist. Does not exist.
I think the right answer is import less of that to our nation.
Yeah. I agree with you. A lot less, actually.
I just don't require any of it here. I need you to be a net positive.
Well, I'm gonna pray us out unless you want to pray us out.
Do it. You do it.
All right. Whew, man, this is.
We've come a long way from you eating peanut butter and celery, my friend.
I know. It's really good peanut butter and celery. I just want you to know.
All right, send it.
So, Father God, thank you very much for the time that we've had today with Dan and with Kyle. Thank you, Father, for putting Kyle in this fight. Thank you for giving him the courage. Thank you for giving him the ability to see through all the obstacles that have been put in front of him and still maintain his character through all of it. Thank you for pairing him up with his wife and giving him the opportunity to raise his children in such a way that they can be the future generation that we all hope that all of our children would be. Father, I ask you to give us the ability to go forward and to be used in whatever way we need to be used in order to right the wrongs that have been put before us, that we may restore you to our communities and to our country, and ultimately let that leak down into what happens around the world. Father, I just ask that you give us the ability to have discernment, set aside petty differences, and align ourselves with others in our community that frankly are just wanting peace and prosperity and the ability to live a faithful life. Father, I ask you to bless those people that are sick, that they may be healed in your time. I say these things humbly in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. All right. Well, guess what? You are coming out here in April.
What are we doing?
My confirmation.
Cool.
You're coming out for that, for sure.
Can I drive?
You can drive.
All right. Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining me. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, tune in and more. Go over there, give us a 5-star review. Make sure you hit the little up thing if you're on Rumble. It's good to see you guys. Kyle, it's always good to hang out with you, brother.
Yeah,
I hope
buddy.
you feel better, and we'll see you on the other side.
Amen.
All right. God bless you.
Rising from forgotten and the free, exposing rigged machines, Kuma's lies, Dominion's deceit, pays $1,000 each day, shielding truth from corrupt halls, but he won't back down, standing tall through it all. Argentina Peters break the chains that bind her tight, hand count votes and one day bring the fraud to light. No more mailing scams, no machines to steal the night. Restore the people's voice, make Colorado right. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away. Shrink the bloated state, let the people have their say. Oltmann, it's our rally call. Truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people. Set our great state free. Help the single moms, bring back trade school strong. Opportunity for youth, where the brave belong. Audit every NGO, ban the wolves that roam. Reclaim our stolen land, bring the power home. Eric Kuma's fraud, Dominion's rigged design, expose the stolen votes, cross a dangerous line. No more victimhood, no chains on you and me. He's running for governor for real liberty. Smash the fraud machine, pardon heroes jailed for the have-nots. Rising truth will never fail. One warrior defies the corrupt elite. Colorado reborn, strong on our feet. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away. Shrink the bloated state, let the people have the say. Governor Oltmann, it's our rally call. Truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people. Set our great state free. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Governor Oltmann, freedom forever, Colorado rise. Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Rise up untamed, in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Tame nation, strong motivation.